Chapter 1712. Portia saw a figure in a waiter's uniform run away quickly. Then she saw Gaia covered in blood. Gaia's body was pressed against the wall. Ah, Gaia. What's wrong? Portia staggered 2 steps forward, but fell to the ground again. Gritting her teeth, Gaia took out her phone. Chun, something happened. I know. Chen Zhao could already feel it through the small world. Raz, Faxi, go to Portia's room, Chen Zhao said. Gaia's injured. She seems to have been poisoned. Ruan Faxi was an alchemist. He had some antidotes. Raz was a healer. He could handle Gaia's injuries. Chen Zhao paused. Jalanash, you go too, he said. Ruan Faxi and Raz didn't have much combat power, so it would be troublesome if the monster returned. More at Klaus, Chen Zhao said. You guys go after the monster now. He had already locked onto Bride Luo's location. No wonder he couldn't sense her earlier. It was because she was hiding in a waiter's skin. She looked like a normal person. Plus, the skin blocked Chen Zhao's senses. That was why he was fooled. But now Chen Zhao knew the reason. There were no other problems. Everyone split up, while Chen Zhao stayed at the party. Chen, aren't you going to do it? It's too irresponsible of you to leave everything to others, Fei Lai criticized in a joking tone. She knew that Chen Zhao didn't do anything to protect her and the 2 kids. Of course, it was also because Bride Luo wasn't strong. At least the people from the association were strong enough. But Fei Lai was wrong about one thing. Chen Zhao didn't do nothing. In fact, the dark lava was seeping downwards. Some places that normal people couldn't see were already permeated by it. If there were any changes in the situation, dark magma would attack or protect its subordinates. At the same time, Chen Zhao knocked out the people in the surveillance room and turned off all the surveillance in the hotel. The monster is hiding in the cleaner's tool room now. Chen Zhao controlled the phone remotely. She's hiding in a waiter's skin. West walked over. President, do you need me to help? No, it's just a monster, Chen Zhao said calmly. You guys just arrived today. Have fun. At this moment, a figure descended from the sky and landed on the rooftop. Everyone was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but reveal vigilant expressions. Chen Zhao looked over. Why was Zhang Tianyi here? Hello, Mr. Zhang. Why are you here? Zhang Tianyi took a deep breath. There seems to be a little monster hiding in the hotel. Do you know about it? Yeah, I just found out, Chen Zhao said. I even suffered a bit. My people are capturing that little monster now. Chen Zhao didn't expect Zhang Tianyi to be so perceptive. Mr. Zhang, how did you know? You can tell just by taking a breath. Demonic aura. I can smell demonic aura, even if it's very faint. Zhang Tianyi said matter-of-factly. That's right. You're not a Taoist, and you've never come into contact with monsters abroad. It's understandable that you're not familiar with Taoist techniques. Most people in the spiritual world in our country aren't bad at this. Zhang Tianyi paused. Then he said, Oh, I'm looking for you because of that demonic blade. You need it? Not me. This demonic blade is called White Mask. It's one of the 4 monster generals under Tamamo no Mei's command. Zhang Tianyi briefly explained the purpose of his trip. I just want to see if I can find some information about the other 3 monster generals from White Mask. Chen Zhao shook his head. I can't help it. White Mask's demonic aura can't enter my body at all, much less control me. But because of this, I can't sense its consciousness. Okay, looks like my idea won't work. Zhang Tianyi shook his head helplessly. He wasn't surprised by Chen Zhao's answer. With Chen Zhao's cultivation, if a mere demonic blade could invade his consciousness, that would be the biggest problem. I heard that if you can completely control the blade, your power will increase greatly. Did you increase it? No, it's just scrap metal to me. But if I pick up the blade, I'll become a warrior. Increase Chen Zhao's current power? Stop joking. Chen Zhao didn't feel anything at all. Plus, he still had many abilities that he hadn't used yet. If it was compared to the Black Trident that was magically modified by Old Turtle, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it would weaken Chen Zhao's power. By then, Bride Luo had already met up with the people who had surrounded her. Klaus shot at Bride Luo directly. The skin of the bride was immediately riddled with holes. Bride Luo also crawled out of her skin completely. She was about to counterattack, but Klaus easily dodged her attack. Mo and Mord also took action. Klaus, there's an attendant on the same floor as you. He's a regular person. Don't be too loud. In case he sees you, try to be quiet, Chen Zhao instructed through his phone. Zhang Tianyi's small world wasn't as big as Chen Zhao's, but it was still 100 meters wide. He could also sense the two sides in the battle. Your subordinates are all talents. Their battle awareness is so strong. I really don't know how you trained them. That Klaus guy doesn't have any magical power. How did he do it? He actually trained his body to this level. Do you have some secret technique? Ha, just a little trick. Chen Zhao chuckled. Zhang Tianyi didn't plan on getting to the bottom of it, but he was still quite interested in this battle. It's a pity that Norma isn't here, West said. Otherwise, the battle would have ended silently. Indeed, Norma had work to do, so she would only come tomorrow. Of course, Klaus, Moore and Mord were already enough to deal with Bride Luo. Bride Luo was completely suppressed by the three of them. Chen Zhao saw that it was about time. Dark magma suddenly spewed out from the pipe beside him, and bound Bride Luo. Huh? What's this? Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. It had to be said that if this liquid and solid substance could be wielded with ease, it would be extremely effective in battle. Mord, and Klaus avoided the attendant and dragged Bride Luo to the rooftop for Chen Zhao to deal with. Chapter 1713. In the morning, Portia shot up from the bed. She still hadn't recovered from her hangover. However, she vaguely remembered that something had happened last night. Gaia seemed to have been stabbed. Portia hurriedly got up. She didn't even wash up or change out of her pajamas. She ran to Gaia's room and banged on the door. The door opened. Gaia's tall figure stood before Portia. Gaia, were you hurt last night? What? Portia, have you been drinking too much? Portia looked at Gaia in confusion. Gaia indeed didn't seem to be hurt. Right now, her mind was also a mess. She wasn't sure if the things in her mind were real. Was it really just her imagination? Portia, shouldn't you go change? Portia just remembered that she was still in her pajamas. Recently, Tokyo was really in chaos. Evil was everywhere. Of course, large numbers of spiritualists gathered from all over. Not just Japan, but all the spiritualists from all over the world had come. Coupled with the suppression of the government, there were no incidents that were too sensational. But last night, Kobe City Hospital suddenly collapsed. A 10-story building, thousands of patients and medical staff were all buried in the rubble. This news shook all of Japan, even the whole world. Some people said that they saw a huge ghost destroy the hospital. Others said that the old site of the hospital had once been a huge execution ground. Anyway, rumors were everywhere. Even the rumor that Japan was going to sink was very popular. However, such rumors would appear every once in a while. To Chen Zhao and the members of the association, it was time to eat and play. It was as if it had nothing to do with them. Portia had been shopping for the past 3 days. Her legs seemed to be cramping. Feilai also planned to stay in the hotel for a day to rest. Gaia couldn't move around much today, so he didn't go out either. The members of the association also went out to play one after another. Genkira followed Higashino Tianchi to the forge. Chen Zhao went out to drink with a few association members. Shibuya was a place that all men in the world dreamed of going to, because the alcohol here was really good. Yes, that was it. Chen Zhao, Klaus, and Henry were drinking in an izakaya with Japanese characteristics. When they came out, Henry and Klaus were a little drunk. At night, Shibuya was brighter and brighter, and there was a rancid smell everywhere. President, I think I saw a friend. I'll go greet him and go home by myself tonight, Henry said shyly. Go, Klaus. Are you coming? Chen Zhao asked, unconcerned. Chen Zhao knew where Henry wanted to go. Along the way, Henry's eyes had been wandering around the signs in the alleys. Although he couldn't understand the Japanese words on the sign, the neon color that was commonly used all over the world, as well as the logo on it, were easy to recognize. Chen Zhao was his superior, but it was not his place to meddle in other people's private affairs. I won't be going. I recently got a girlfriend. Klaus was quite serious in this aspect. Ordinary people? Yes, he's an elementary school teacher. Klaus nodded. And then you should get along well. Who? A cool breeze blew past the street. and then a person in front of him suddenly fell to the ground, clutching his neck. Then a riot broke out in the streets. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. Klaus was a bit tipsy, but he sobered up instantly. He turned to look at Chen Zhao. "President, are they monsters?" "Yes, two big rats," Chen Zhao said. In the wind, there were two rats that looked very big. The two rats moved with the wind. One used its sharp claws to rip open the victim's neck. The other used its mouth to take away the victim's money. This made Chen Zhao curious. The two rats were clearly monsters. It wasn't hard to understand why monsters killed people. But not only did they kill people, but they also stole money. Why did they steal money? The two rats reminded Chen Zhao of a famous Japanese monster, Itachi Kamikaze. It was a monster that moved with the wind. It looked like a rat, but it was invisible. But in Japanese legends, Itachi Kamikaze had 3 brothers. One tripped people, one tore open people's wounds, and one applied plaster to the victim. However, there were only 2 in the wind just now. They clearly didn't match the legends. "Let's go over there and take a look." "Yes." Klaus put on his special glasses. The glasses allowed him to see things he couldn't normally see. At first, Jolig had made them. Then after Ruan Faxben came, he'd remade them. Now the glasses were more portable and had more powerful functions. Other than seeing souls, they could also see other things. But Klaus still couldn't keep up. Chen Zhao suddenly grabbed Klaus and lifted him into the air. This was the first time Klaus flew into the sky without modern technology. Of course, Klaus quickly adjusted his state of mind. The 2 mice went into a remote factory. There were a few dead people in the factory, as well as a man wearing a black robe and a tall hat. The man's attire looked like the clothes of an ancient onmyoji, hunting clothes. A few green willow. The wisps floated around him. "Kamikaze, Song, you're back. How's today's harvest?" The 2 monsters called Kamikaze and Song landed before the man. Then Song threw all the money he'd stolen before the man. Nice job. I'm rich now. I don't have to stay in a place like this anymore." "Song Yuan Huang, we've already helped you kill 99 people. In order to steal the blood-stained money, we've fulfilled your request. Return our brother's medicine to us." The onmyoji named Song Yuan Huang looked at Kamikaze and Song with an evil smile. "Do you think this is enough?" Song Yuan Huang looked down at Kamikaze and Song. "Do you want to go back on your word?" Both Kamikaze and Song flashed their sharp claws. "Don't, please don't. If you kill me, you'll never see your brother's medicine again." Song Yuan Huang tried his best to look panicked, but he was actually smiling. He was clearly teasing Kamikaze and Song. Kamikaze and Song had been hesitating. They'd had enough of Song Yuan Huang's teasing. But they couldn't be at ease without seeing their brother's medicine. "We can't be controlled by him anymore. Kill him, and we'll find the medicine." Kamikaze was the most murderous. He finally decided to kill Song Yuan Huang. After some hesitation, Song finally agreed to Kamikaze's idea. What a disobedient little mouse. Song Yuan Huang's lips curled up slightly in disdain. Obviously, he didn't think much of the 2 rats. Chapter 17-14. Chen Zhao and Klaus hid in the dark to watch the show. Chen Zhao took out his phone and typed Song Yuan Huang in the search bar. The person who jumped out was a Dao Venerate of the central government during the Hengwu Heavenly Emperor Huang dynasty. He was a 3rd-rank imperial astronomer of the Japanese imperial court. Later on, he was imprisoned by the Heavenly Emperor due to rumors that a disaster was about to befall the Pingon capital. Rumor has it that he committed suicide in prison. In other words, if this guy was Song Yuan Huang from the Heian era, then he had lived for at least 1,100 years. Song Yi and Yuan Huang were facing off against Lien and Song. A battle could break out at any time. Suddenly, Song Yuan Huang shouted, "Scoundrel, come out." Just as Klaus was about to stand up, Chen Zhao pushed him back down. He shook his head at Klaus. At this moment, 2 people jumped out from the opposite roof. Chiyokori and Sakurako Kurosaki appeared. Song Yuan Huang whistled. "If I knew that 2 beautiful ladies would come tonight, I would definitely clean this place up." The ghost fire around Song Yuan Huang whistled and landed on the surrounding corpses. The corpses suddenly burst into green flames. "You are the green-faced divine master?" Sakurako was also wrapped up tightly this time. He wore a ghost mask and carried 4 short swords on his back. Song Yi Jinhuang frowned and said unhappily, "Is it about Tamamo no Mei again? How annoying. I have nothing to do with him anymore. You don't have to look for me. Besides, I haven't used the title Green-Faced Divine Master for 1,000 years. Tamamo no Mei's lackey, do you think you can get away with this kind of sweet talk?" Chiyo Kaori said disdainfully. Song Yi Jinhuang narrowed his eyes at Chiyo Kaori and said in a sinister tone, "Brat, do you know how powerful a Onmyoji can become in 1,000 years? Traitor of the Yin Yang Dao, no matter how strong you are, you will never be able to escape from the restraints of Yin Yang. Idiots who are obsessed with Taoism." Suddenly, Lian and Song attacked Song Yi Yuanhuang at the same time. The 2 demons transformed into a gust of wind, and a tearing sound could be heard in the air. "Little rat." Song Yi Yuanhuang spread his sleeves, which suddenly expanded. It was like the legendary heaven and earth in the sleeve, constantly sucking in the wind. In the blink of an eye, the gale had calmed down, and Song and Sickle both fell out from the calm gale. All of their abilities were closely related to the wind. They could create strong winds, and they could also control strong winds. However, if they lost the gale, all of their abilities would become meaningless. At this moment, Chiyo Kaori also attacked. 2 giant ghosts appeared behind Chiyo Kaori, Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost. Green Ghost wielded a mace, while Crimson Ghost wielded a demon-headed blade in each hand. Qing Gui and Qi Gui attacked Song Yi Yuanhuang at the same time. Song Yi Yuanhuang's sleeves were aimed at Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost. The gale that he had sucked in earlier was released directly at the 2 ghosts. Crash! The 2 gigantic ghosts were blown away. "Heaven and earth, light of Tao," Sakurako muttered an incantation. "Gods of the 4 directions, grant me a body come." So it's a little friend from the Yu Guixia family. Song Yi Jinhuang looked at Sakurako and didn't interrupt her spell casting. Instead, he stood on the side and commented, "Gods of the 4 directions? He's just a partial god. Even if you invite his true body here, he might not be able to defeat me." In Japanese mythology, the gods of the 4 directions were actually similar to China's city god, earth god, or mountain god. They were gods that were born in a certain region. Although they were called gods, they were actually no different from demons. They had divinity, but they weren't as powerful as gods. Even some demons could bully them. "Don't forget, this is Tokyo." Sakurako's eyes suddenly emitted a red light, and her aura surged. Japan had moved its capital several times, but Tokyo only became the capital in recent times. Before Tokyo became the capital, China hired a feng shui master to search for dragons and break veins. They set up the 4 symbols formation to guard the fate of the country. The 4 symbols formation was the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Therefore, the gods of the 4 directions in Tokyo weren't ordinary earth gods or mountain gods, but 4 divine beasts. Each of the 4 divine beasts had boundless divine abilities, and they were countless times stronger than the gods of the 4 directions in other places. Sakurako was surrounded by divine fire. She spread her arms. An endless divine fire spread toward Song Yi Yuanhuang. Red Lotus. Within the divine flame, one beautiful red lotus after another blossomed. Song Yi Yuanhuang cursed inwardly and tapped his foot on the ground. Yellow springs compared to Nara. A black spring appeared on the ground. The black spring spewed out black water pillars, directly extinguishing the divine fire. The beautiful red lotuses also withered. Suddenly, a charming laughter came from the factory. The laughter was filled with ethereal beauty. Even if one only heard the voice and couldn't see the person, they would still feel an indescribable charm. Red flowers bloomed from the black spring, gradually covering the entire factory. Even the walls and ceiling of the factory were covered by the red flowers. A naked woman with only a few red muslin wrapped around her was lazily lying on her side in the sea of red flowers. Whether it was Kama, Sora, Kwagi Sakurako, or Chiyo Kaori, their eyes were filled with confusion. The flower of the other shore blooms, the yellow springs nirvana. In the Buddhist scriptures, nirvana referred to the endless hell, never to be reincarnated. The spider lily was also the flower of hell in Buddhism. There was no shore on the other side, and the yellow springs bloomed. Even Klaus, who was hiding in the dark, was affected. Slap! Chen Zhao slapped Klaus's face. Ah! Klaus woke up instantly. Any more rats? Song Yuanhuang looked at where Chen Zhao and Klaus were hiding. Chen Zhao took out the demon knife white-faced ghost and instantly turned into a sword-wielding warrior. Then, Chen Zhao walked out in a dignified manner. White-faced ghost. Song Yuanhuang's body shook and his pupils constricted. As his emotions fluctuated, the yellow spring's nirvana disintegrated. Sakurako and Chiyokori's expressions changed drastically. Song Yuanhuang wasn't someone they could deal with anymore. Now there was another white-faced ghost. They'd just suffered from the white-faced ghost yesterday. They didn't expect him to appear again. The situation this time was clearly more dangerous than yesterday. Yesterday, Zhang Tianyi had saved them. But this time they weren't so lucky. However, Song Yuanhuang's expression was even worse than theirs. In his opinion, white-faced Gui Che's appearance here was undoubtedly to deal with him. Also, since the white-faced ghost was here, would the red-faced ghost king and the black-faced Rakshasa be far away? As one of the 4 generals under Tamamo no Mei, Song Yuanhuang didn't dare to say that he would definitely win against any of them. Moreover, if the other 2 came too, he really wouldn't be able to escape. Chapter 17:15. A sudden voice sounded. I didn't think I'd meet 2 old friends. What a delightful charge. A cloud of black smoke charged into the scene and turned into a man wearing a black crown. Black-face Rakshasa. Rakshasa, do you know that white-faced ghost is here too? Another voice sounded. The voice came from above the factory. Everyone couldn't help but look up. Suddenly, the roof of the factory was lifted, and a huge red ghost king poked its head in. Chiyokori swallowed. Behind her, Green Demon and Red Demon were also terrified. Compared to humans, Green Ghost and Crimson Ghost were already very large. But compared to the Red Ghost King, it was still many times weaker. Without a doubt, this Red Ghost King was one of the 4 generals under Tamamo no Mei, the Red-Faced Ghost King. The current situation was that the 4 great demon generals had gathered and had all appeared. Haha, I didn't think the 4 of us would reunite under these circumstances. I believe our master will break the seal soon and return to the human world. Song Yuanhuang laughed out loud. Earlier, he'd wanted to escape Tamamo no Mei's control. But the situation was beyond his control. He didn't think he could fight 3 monsters of the same level at the same time. So he changed his tone decisively. Both the black-faced Ghost King and the red-faced Ghost King knew what Song Yuanhuang was thinking. Plus, as colleagues, they knew how shameless Song Yuanhuang was. Song Yuanhuang represented the worst side of humans. Despicable, sinister, and without any standpoint. When he'd been imprisoned, it was their master, Tamamo no Mei, who'd given him a chance to be reborn. He'd also become one of his master's servants. But after his master was sealed, he'd completely broken away from the 4 generals. Plus, he'd never thought about saving his master. Every few decades he'd always heard about his misdeeds. Now that the 4 generals had gathered, Song Yuanhuang immediately changed his attitude. He'd become his master's loyal servant again. Only Chen Zhao, the fake general, stood there without saying a word. Chen Zhao was curious about what would happen if he killed all 3 of them. Could he stop Tamamo no Mei from reappearing? Suddenly, a cold glint shot out of Chen Zhao's eyes. The 3 great demon generals were alarmed. What's this guy doing? Each of the 4 of them had a strange temperament. However, the most reclusive one would have to be white-faced Gui Che. He never spoke, only killed. While they were still in shock, Chen Zhao had already made his move. An extremely fast saber light cut through the air. Song Yuanhuang looked at his arm and chest sliding down. This? Song Yuanhuang stared at his body in disbelief. But in the next instant, Song Yuanhuang's body suddenly transformed into a human-shaped piece of paper that had been cut open. Song Yuanhuang walked out unscathed. Damn it, this guy is crazy. He wants to kill me. Song Yuanhuang roared furiously. Did you all see that? This guy wants to kill me. White-faced ghost, stop messing around. The black-faced Rakshasa shouted. Just then, Chen Zhao charged at the black-faced demon. Damn it. The black-faced Rakshasa retreated hastily. But no matter how fast he was, he could not be faster than Chen Zhao. Although Chen Zhao was holding the demon knife, He didn't know any of White-Faced Ghost's moves. It was just a show. But that didn't mean he didn't know how to fight. Even if he had never fought with the katana. But who didn't know how to cut people with a sword? Chen Zhao slashed across the black-faced Rakshasa's body. The black-faced Rakshasa hurriedly turned into a cloud of black smoke and floated away. Of course, even that didn't mean he was completely unharmed. Chen Zhao didn't like to fight against opponents who could turn into mist, but it didn't mean he couldn't do anything. In fact, the demon knife was effective against enemies who could turn into mist. Even without using immortal power, Chen Zhao could hurt the black-faced Rakshasa with the demon knife. Song Wama, Chiyo Kaori, and Sakurako were all dumbfounded. What was going on? Why did White-Faced Ghost turn against him? The black-faced Rakshasa gathered at another location. However, there was a ghastly scar on his chest. Damn it, White-Faced Ghost. If you don't explain yourself, I won't go easy on you. The black-faced Rakshasa roared. Chen Zhao didn't say anything. If he did, he would be exposed. Just then, a giant hand descended from the sky, grabbing at Chen Zhao. The red-faced Ghost King attacked. He was more direct than the others. Chen Zhao didn't plan to hold back. Anyway, Chen Zhao had made up his mind. He would leave all 4 of them. No, 3 of them. Roar! The red-faced Ghost King's arm was cut off. Blood splattered everywhere like rain. The Ghost King's blood was like gasoline, burning the moment it landed on the ground. Chen Zhao's body started burning too. But Chen Zhao didn't move, even if his body was on fire. Kill him! Kill him! He betrayed us. He betrayed Master. Chen Zhao didn't plan to stop. He charged up along the red-faced Ghost King's arm. He raised the knife, and the red-faced Ghost King suddenly stopped roaring. His movements stopped too, as if he was frozen in a movie. The scene became silent. Everyone looked at the red-faced Ghost King and Chen Zhao, who was on his shoulder in shock. Slowly, the red-faced Ghost King's neck and head separated. Chen Zhao might not be able to deal with Song Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King. But the red-faced Ghost King was the best opponent for Chen Zhao. The red-faced Ghost King's huge body fell down, collapsing a wall of the factory. Song Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Aoi Kama, Chiyo Kaori, and Sakurako were all in disbelief. The 4 demon generals had killed each other. And the powerful red-faced Ghost King had been instantly killed by the white-faced ghost. Song Yi, Yuan Huang, and the black-faced Ghost King felt chills down their spines. What was going on? The 4 generals should be equal in strength. How could the white-faced Ghost King kill the red-faced Ghost King so easily? No, something's wrong. Song Yi's face was pale. He was different from the other 3 generals. He wasn't a pure demon. He was a half-human half-demon transformed by Tamamo no Mei. Therefore, he still retained the habits of humans, and also retained some of the bad traits of humans. His way of thinking was more like a human's. He vaguely realized that there was something wrong with the white-faced Ghost King. But as for what exactly was wrong, he couldn't tell. The one in front of him was indeed the white-faced Ghost King. There was no fake. But where did this strange feeling come from? Song Yi looked at Chen Zhao. The moment he met Chen Zhao's gaze, he finally understood. The gaze wasn't cold as a knife. It was mockery, disdain, and murderous intent. Chapter 17:16. The white-faced Oni wouldn't have such a look. Because the white-faced Oni was the last of the 4 generals. It wasn't that he was the weakest, but that he was the last to appear. It was a demon blade made by Tamamo no Mei herself with the help of the other 3 generals. Song Yi was also one of the participants. He understood the white-faced Oni. At least he thought so. The white-faced Oni was the most loyal to Tamamo no Mei. He was an emotionless weapon. Any body controlled by the white-faced Oni would also be emotionless. However, Song Yi Yuan Huang saw the emotions in White Mask Guiche's eyes when he came into contact with it. At this moment, Song Yi panicked. He thought of a possibility. A person who could pick up the demon blade wasn't enslaved by the white-faced Oni. This meant that this person was more powerful than the white-faced Oni. He was stronger than any of them. Wait, the white-faced Oni. I'm on your side. I'll kill the black-faced Rakshasa with you. That way, we can completely break free from Tamamo no Mei's control. What do you think? Song Yi Yuan Huang had once again displayed his most shameless side. Chen Zhao looked at Song Yi. He didn't waste any words. Song Yi's face darkened when he saw the blade coming. He used the paper man substitutes again. The paper men substitutes were very useful. They could avoid a fatal attack. But they couldn't be used limitlessly. Not to mention the complicated production process and high price. Using the paper men substitutes required a large amount of mana, and also the pain of each fatal attack. Chen Zhao was prepared for this. The moment Song Yi used the paper men substitutes, Chen Zhao locked onto Song Yi's real body. Chen Zhao swept up a gust of wind. The blade cut through the air like a dragon's roar. But just as Chen Zhao was about to hit Song Yi, suddenly, a figure appeared before Chen Zhao. Duang, the figure smashed heavily toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao blocked it with his sword. Then he flicked it upward. His arm was sent flying. Song Yi's Shikigami appeared in front of him. It was an 8-armed King Kong made entirely out of metal. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Even Chen Zhao's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Is this a joke? What is this? Spirit-branded retainer or Gundam? Apart from the arm that was chopped off by Chen Zhao, the other 7 arms of the King Kong were all holding Gatling guns, and its body was covered in bullets. Moreover, the machine guns in its hands were obviously specially made. Each gun had a very large caliber. Black-faced Rakshasa. This guy clearly wants to kill us all. If you still hesitate, we'll all die here today. When that happens, you won't even have the chance to serve Tamamo no Mei, Song Yi Zhenhuang said. The black-faced Rakshasa also felt that the situation was getting out of control. He was not as cunning as Song Yi Yuan Huang. Even now, he still did not understand why fiendish blade white-faced ghost would betray him. However, it was just as Song Yi Yuan Huang had said. If he continued to watch the show, Song Yi Yuan Huang would be killed. Then it would be his turn. Although he hated Song Yi Yuan Huang, he hated her so much that he didn't even try to hide it. But he also knew that he was stronger than others. The black-faced Rakshasa's body floated up, his arms spread wide. At this time, the moon and the stars were completely covered. Most of Tokyo was shrouded in dark clouds. At the center of the dark clouds was the black-faced Rakshasa. He sucked in big mouthfuls of dark clouds. The dark clouds were actually the negative emotions of the people in the area. Right now, the black-faced Rakshasa was absorbing the negative emotions of millions of people. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. This black-faced Rakshasa should be half a step into the Shangqing state. Among the 4 generals of Tamamo no Mei, this guy should be the strongest. With every negative emotion he absorbed, the black-faced Rakshasa's power increased. Chiokeru and Sakurako felt as if a heavy stone was pressing down on their hearts. This battle was no longer something they could participate in. Chen Zhao looked at the black-faced Rakshasa, then at Song Yi Yuan Huang. Killed Song Yi Yuan Huang first. One had to admit that Song Yi Yuan Huang's Shikigami was an eye-opener for Chen Zhao. The 8-armed King Kong, which was a mixture of science and magic, was indeed refreshing. However, that was all. The blade in Chen Zhao's hand flashed. Ta ta ta, 7 Gatling guns fired wildly at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao neither dodged nor evaded. He swung his blade from bottom to top. When the blade slashed across the ground, sparks flew and a ghastly scar was left on the ground. However, the blade wasn't obstructed. Instead, it carried an even fiercer and colder killing intent. Hiss! The 8-armed King Kong's arm, gun and body were instantly cut off. Oh no! Song Yi Yuan Huang was shocked. He didn't expect his Shikigami to be so useless before Chen Zhao. He'd thought that even if Chen Zhao faced an enemy much stronger than him, the 8 Gatling guns would still be a huge problem. 8 Gatling guns could also bring great trouble to the enemy, and it was not impossible for them to kill enemies that were stronger than themselves. Moreover, the 8-armed King Kong's body was made of titanium alloy. It was almost indestructible. Alas, dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. Before Chen Zhao, the 8-armed King Kong couldn't unleash its combat power. Chen Zhao didn't stop. He continued slashing at Song Yi Yuan Huang. Substitute. Seeing that Chen Zhao wasn't far away, Song Yi Yuan Huang could only activate the paper man substitute again. But this time, Chen Zhao exploded with even greater speed. He was more than 10 times faster than before. Before Song Yi Yuan Huang, could activate the paper man substitute, Chen Zhao had already slashed his neck. The demon blade in Chen Zhao's hand brushed through the air at high speed. It was already red like a soldering iron. Song Yuanhuang stopped moving. Her face was filled with shock and disbelief. You. Who exactly are? Chen Zhao grabbed Song Yuanhuang's head and lifted it up gently. Song Yuanhuang didn't die right away. After all, he was a half-human, half-demon on Myoji that had lived for 1,000 years. Most of his abilities were in staying alive. Guess. Chen Zhao didn't plan to tell Song Yuanhuang his identity. He planned to keep pretending to be the white-faced ghost. Chen Zhao looked at the last general, the Black Rakshasa. To be honest, the white-faced ghost probably couldn't defeat the Black Rakshasa. The Black Rakshasa had also absorbed enough negative emotions by now. His eyes were as deep as a black hole. He floated in the air and looked down at Chen Zhao. I didn't think I could absorb so many negative emotions here. It feels so good. Chen Zhao stared at the Rakshasa. His lips curled into a smile. Enjoy your last pleasure while there's still time. Chapter 1717. What? The Rakshasa was stunned. Demon Blade white-faced ghost wouldn't say something like that. But just as he was distracted, like an arrow, Chen Zhao shot toward the black-faced Rakshasa. The Rakshasa was fully prepared. However, there was one thing that he had forgotten, because Chen Zhao wasn't slashing him with a knife. Instead, Chen Zhao gave him a bear hug and pushed him to the ground. Chen Zhao's power wasn't something he could fight against. Even if he'd absorbed half the city's negative emotions, Chen Zhao pressed the Rakshasa to the ground. He raised the demon blade and stabbed it into the Rakshasa's chest. The Rakshasa wanted to turn into black mist, but every time he did, Chen Zhao would use his celestial power to disperse the Dharma power in his body. The Rakshasa started to panic. He punched Chen Zhao crazily. He wanted to push Chen Zhao away, but his fists were no different from a drizzle to Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao's current appearance and smile were like mockery to the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa's aura grew weaker and weaker. I won't die. As long as humans exist. One day I will. None of my business. Chen Zhao sneered. He didn't plan on meddling in other people's business forever. The Rakshasa had become weaker, but he still hadn't given up hope. He continued to struggle, but every time he punched Chen Zhao punched him back. He would always be at a disadvantage. Chen Zhao nailed the Rakshasa to the ground with the demon blade. Every time Chen Zhao punched him, the Rakshasa's demonic aura would disperse a bit. Chen Zhao didn't kill him with one punch, because he was afraid he'd turn into mist and escape. Chen Zhao had dealt with enemies who could turn into mist before. He couldn't be too impatient against such enemies. He needed to disperse their power bit by bit. Keep weakening them, until they didn't even have the power to turn into mist. The ground within dozens of meters was full of cracks from Chen Zhao's punches. He couldn't do it with just the power of the demon blade. He couldn't even defeat the Rakshasa. Boom, boom, boom. Chiyokori and Sakurako looked at the continuous explosions 100 meters away. But it was completely covered in smoke and dust. They couldn't see what was going on inside. The two of them thought about it and decided to leave. If he didn't run now, he would have to wait for the two demon generals to decide the victor. By then it would be too late for them to escape. They wouldn't continue to think that they could deal with any one of them. Whether it was the white-faced ghost or the black-faced Rakshasa, they were beyond their imagination. If they were to get close to the center of the battle, just the aftermath of the battle would be enough to make them wish they were dead. So they ran away with their tails between their legs. The rumbling continued for 20 minutes. Only then did Chen Zhao walk out of the dust. Although he had not used his full strength in the battle with the black-faced Rakshasa, he had already won. But Chen Zhao's face was still covered in dirt. Klaus, you can come out. Klaus stepped out of the shadows. President, where's that demon? I killed him, Chen Zhao said. To be honest, Japan was an active region in the supernatural world. The strength of the supernatural demons here was also beyond his expectations. For example, the black-faced Rakshasa's strength was almost on par with the snow fiend Kunkka of the Great Snow Mountains of North America. The black-faced Rakshasa was slightly weaker than Kunkka, but the difference wasn't huge. The black-faced Rakshasa needed densely populated areas, while Kunkka needed to be in areas covered in ice and snow. Their strength was greatly limited. However, once their conditions were met, they would become extremely powerful. The black-faced Rakshasa was a big demon in Japan, but not the strongest. Kunkka was already one of the strongest in North America. One could imagine how great the difference in power between the spiritual world in North America and the spiritual world in Japan was. Now Chun Zhao had a chance to fight with the strongest demon in Japan. Chun Zhao couldn't help but guess that the Japanese's supernatural world was already so powerful. In that case, just how powerful would the Wuxia region's supernatural world be? And how powerful would the top Chinese supernatural world be? He had to find a chance to ask Zhang Tianyi, "President, can you fly me back?" No, the city is too eye-catching. This place was far from the city, but it was still densely populated. Their battle just now had already attracted attention. There were already police cars moving in their direction. If he really flew back to the hotel with Klaus, they would probably be monitored by the government. Just then, police sirens could be heard in the distance. The two spent an hour returning to the hotel. As soon as they entered, Chun Zhao and Klaus paused at the same time. "President. Yeah, you noticed too, right? Is it those two rats?" Chun Zhao could only notice them because of the perception of the small world. But Klaus was different. He relied on his awareness and the few traces he had. This was his super battle awareness that he'd trained in countless battles. "Let's go upstairs first. Don't fight here. They can't hide from my senses." "Song, are you sure the person with the demon knife is that man?" "Yes, my nose is very sensitive. It's at least 100 times better than yours. He won't kill us, right? We've killed many people." "I don't know, but he's our only chance." The two rats followed Chun Zhao and Klaus into the hotel. Using his scent, they found Chun Zhao's floor. "It's the room in front." The two rats snuck to the door. The door wasn't closed. Without thinking, they crawled into the room. But the moment they entered, the door was closed. Song and Sickle were dumbfounded. There were many people in the room, and almost all of them were foreigners. Everyone looked at Song and Sickle with evil intentions. "Rats! Rats!" Jerlin pointed at Song and Sickle in surprise. Two big rats, two big rats. Dad, I want big rats." Song and Sickle immediately wanted to escape. But the next moment, a large net fell over their heads. Song and Sickle were dragged to the center of the crowd. Song and Sickle hugged each other in fear, trembling. Fei Lai glanced at Chun Zhao and whispered, "You can't keep rats in the house." Fei Lai likes small animals, but she couldn't like all of them. For example, she couldn't feel anything for the two rats. Gaia lifted the net and studied them closely. "Chun, do they have some disease?" In the Western view, rats were unclean. Jerlin jumped up, trying to grab Song and Sickle who were in the air. Squeak, squeak, Song and Sickle looked fierce. Chun Zhao reached out and grabbed the two rats in the net. "You better keep your claws. If you bite my daughter, I'll skin you." "Oh, I'm Chinese. Have you heard that we Chinese can eat any species until they're endangered?" Chapter 17-18. Song retracted his claws and fangs decisively. "Tell me, why are you following us? Do you want to attack us?" Chun Zhao stared at the two monsters with a cold expression. It wasn't that they were weak. Itachi was a rather famous monster in Japanese mythology. He wasn't that weak either. However, they were short of one. Moreover, they were facing a large group of people. Their aura was extremely weak. They had no other choice but to pretend to be pitiful. We want to borrow your demon knife." Song looked at Chun Zhao, trembling. "Borrow? Are you that elegant? Are you planning to steal or rob?" Chun Zhao had seen them kill and rob on the streets. They didn't show mercy at all. Of course, Chun Zhao couldn't be bothered to argue with them. This was Japan anyway. It had nothing to do with him. Unless it was like now plotting against him. Otherwise, he wouldn't care at all. Japan's spirit world was different from North America's. The Japanese mainly dealt with monsters by suppressing or purifying them. To them, it didn't matter how many people a monster killed. The more ferocious a demon was, the more merit one would gain if they were purified. North America was mostly dominated by evil spirits. There would be some disturbances from other monsters or magical beasts. Furthermore, as long as it was an evil spirit or a magical beast that had taken human life, it would basically be hard for it to escape death. The two regions had different standards. Of course, it was also because they had different views. So Chenjiao didn't care how many people these two monsters killed. In Japan, there were no monsters that didn't kill people. The only difference was how many or how few they killed. Otherwise, they would be the kind that couldn't even beat normal people. What do you want the demon knife for? Are you going to start a massacre? It wasn't that Chenjiao looked down on them. With their strength, let alone the fact that they would be controlled by the demon blade if they took it. Even if they could maintain their sense of self, they wouldn't be able to cause much trouble. In less than half a day they would be suppressed. Especially since this was Tokyo, the place with the most spiritualists and supernatural organizations. No, we want to use the demon knife to find our brother Yao. What does finding your brother have to do with stealing the demon knife? Every bewitching blade has a special ability, hunt. Song said. As long as it is stained with the blood of the prey, even if the prey escapes to the ends of the earth, the demon blade will still be able to find it. Do you have your brother's blood? Yes. Chenjiao rubbed his chin. What do I get out of helping you find your brother? Our brother has medicine. He has a medicine pouch. The medicine in that medicine pouch can quickly heal external injuries. As long as it's not the head or a vital point, it can instantly heal any cuts or external injuries, Sickle said. Chenjiao sank into deep thought. The medicine didn't seem to be effective on him. However, he thought about his family and the people in the association. This medicine was very useful to them. After all, everyone had an emergency. Are you sure your brother is still alive? Of course, we three brothers are of the same origin. If the medicine dies, we won't be able to live either. The two brothers were so anxious to save the medicine. It was not just because of their brotherhood. At the same time, the three brothers' lives were tied together. If one of them died, the other two would die as well. The weasel sickle race was like this. They had a litter of three brothers. They came from the same origin and entrusted their lives to each other. Thus, the weasel sickle race had always been protective of their kin. Sure, I'll help you. Chenjiao agreed readily after a short moment of consideration. Just then, Portia pushed the door open and saw more than 20 people in the room. Chenjiao also had 2 rats in his hands. Ah, rats! These guys are so boring. Gaia walked up and put her arm around Portia's shoulder. I caught 2 rats and they're having so much fun. Let's go to another room. Portia hurriedly followed Gaia out of the room. Are all Japanese rats this big? Portia asked with lingering fear. Such a big rat was definitely a big shock to her. She thought about the size of the 2 rats. She felt that she would have nightmares tonight. No, I can't feel it at all. Chenjiao shook his head. He smeared Weasel Sickle's blood on it, but he couldn't feel the existence of the medicine or his location. But it couldn't be helped. After all, Chenjiao wasn't controlled by the demon blade. Of course, he couldn't enjoy the power it gave him. To Chenjiao, the demon blade had no other use other than being sharper than regular weapons. Let me try, West said at that moment. West, the demon blade can control people. Are you sure? Chenjiao looked at West hesitantly. He didn't want one of them to take such a risk to save a monster. President, I'm confident, West said. President, I can cast a soul light on West to protect his consciousness from being eroded, Moraz said. I have a soul pendant here, Ruan Faxben said. It can also prevent consciousness from being eroded. He was rather interested in this deal. He was mainly interested in the medicine pouch. If he got it, he could use it for research. Okay. Cast a spell on West first, and hang the soul pendant on him too, Chenjiao said. West, if I find anything wrong with you, don't blame me for knocking you out. Yes, I know. West nodded slightly. After Moraz cast a spell on West, Ruan Faxben took out the soul pendant and put it on. Chenjiao shielded Feilai, Jerlin and Larissa behind him. Chenjiao protected Feilai, Jerlin and Larissa behind him. He didn't want anything to happen to his family. The moment West took the demon blade, his body turned into a warrior. West's body instantly turned into a warrior, releasing a red demonic aura. Everyone stared at West warily. After all, they weren't sure if West could keep his mind. West, how are you now? West opened his eyes silently and turned to Chenjiao. I'm fine. The demon blade didn't affect my mind. Chen Zhao realized that West's reaction was much smaller than he'd imagined. He felt that even without the soul pendant in Moraz's spell, West could probably resist the demon blade's control. Chen Zhao didn't expect West to be so mentally strong. Can you feel where the medicine is? West wiped the blood on the demon blade and sniffed it. Then he nodded. Yes. Great, where is he? Where is he now? Song and Sickle asked impatiently. Chapter 17-19. Chen Zhao followed West, as did Scythe and Song. West, you don't seem to need external protection, Chen Zhao said curiously. You're still immune to the demon's control. President, it's actually very simple. Think of Devil Blade's mental corruption as a virus. He can invade and control a human's brain. And a human's brain is like a Microsoft system. However, this virus can't invade every system. Coincidentally, my system is different from a normal person's. West laughed. It was different from Chen Zhao, who completely blocked the power of the demon blade. West, on the other hand, was completely immune. The results of both were the same, but the method was different. West, are you an alien? West rolled his eyes. Sickle and Song were anxious. They really wanted to urge Chen Zhao and West to speed up, but Chen Zhao and West were not in a hurry at all. They took their time. Oh right, why did that Song Yuanhuang ask you guys to rob for him? He should have that ability, right? To be honest, as long as spiritualists were unscrupulous, it was not difficult to earn money. Moreover, he was a bad person to begin with. Song Yuanhuang shouldn't have such a psychological burden, right? West rolled his eyes at Chen Zhao. President, can we not ask such stupid questions? What? Is that a stupid question? Chen Zhao didn't even realize that he had asked a stupid question. If he didn't know, he just didn't know. The transaction between a spiritualist and an ordinary person must be an equivalent exchange. Of course, employment is also a type of equivalent exchange. If a spiritualist uses extreme means to plunder the wealth of an ordinary person, then he will be punished, and it will be a punishment from fate. Supernatural creatures can't use human money directly, West said. They can only be given, and it has to be the money of the dead. In other words, the two of them have to kill the person before they can steal the money and give the money to the primordial wilderness Tsangi. That's the process. The two of them will bear the consequences. That Tsangi Yuanhuang will enjoy the final benefit. West nodded. Chen Zhao thought about it. That seemed to be the case. Generally speaking, supernatural creatures did not have the habit of using human currency. This seemed to be restricted by the rules. For example, the evil spirit group in the association always asked their followers to pay for their purchases. Only a weirdo like Song Yuanhuang, who was half human and half demon. There was the restriction of a demon, but also the desire of a human. He was driven by Tamamo no Mei, but he also wanted to break free from her restraints. To be honest, the 1,000 years without Tamamo no Mei was probably the most carefree life he had ever had. A long life, a prosperous life, and the power to do as you please. Chen Zhao was a little envious. Of course, Song Yuanhuang didn't really do whatever he wanted. This was Japan, and there were countless talented people here. Even he needed to keep a low profile. West, since you're completely immune to the Devil Blade's control, I'll let you use the Devil Blade when we get back. It can make up for your lack of attack power. West shook his head. I'm not suitable. Why? Not only can the Devil Blade control a person's consciousness, but it can also subtly change a person's personality, making them cruel and bloodthirsty. This change is very subtle and hard to detect. Therefore, other than you, who can completely resist the Devil Blade's power, no one else is suitable. Didn't you say that your system is different from normal people? It's alive and has its own consciousness. Even computer viruses can self-evolve, let alone the Devil Blade. Fine, but this thing is useless to me, Chen Zhao said with pity. It's a disaster if I keep it. It's better to destroy it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just then, the Devil Blade in West's hand buzzed. What's wrong? He's scared. He's terrified. Is he afraid? As long as he has consciousness, he'll be afraid. It's not strange. Chen Zhao wouldn't be soft-hearted just because the Devil Blade was afraid. This thing was a scourge. Whoever held it would turn into a madman. The Japanese spiritual world had a habit. They always like to keep some weapons or monsters with great destructive power. To control these weapons or monsters, one would have to pay a huge price. However, everyone enjoyed it and never got tired. This was called preventive measures. Of course, most of the trouble was caused by these things too. Chen Zhao didn't have this habit. Not to mention the fact that this thing was useless to him. Even if it was useful, Chen Zhao wouldn't keep it. Unknowingly, Chen Zhao, West, and the two rats arrived at a residential area. West, are you sure you're not going the wrong way? No, I can feel it, West said. West said, based on the feeling from the demon blade, the owner of this drop of blood is nearby, and is in a weakened state. Can you confirm the location? Chen Zhao asked. The area wasn't big or small, but it was densely populated. There were probably tens of thousands of people living here. In such a densely populated area, it would be hard to find without special methods. The devil blade isn't willing to cooperate. Also, his power is withdrawing from my body. Chen Zhao pouted. This kind of self-consciousness was annoying. Chen Zhao took the devil blade from West's hand. If you're not willing to cooperate, I'll destroy you now. Chen Zhao handed the devil blade to West. How is it? Is he cooperating? He said he wants to negotiate with you. Fuck, so annoying. You're in charge of talking to him, Chen Zhao said. Fine. Holding the devil blade, West stood where he was, not moving at all. Sickle and Song were very anxious. They could vaguely smell their brother's scent in the area. But there were too many people here. They couldn't determine the exact location in a short time. After a while, West opened his eyes. President, his only request is that you don't destroy him. Did you agree? My request is that he must unconditionally obey the orders of everyone in the association and lend his power to them. Also, he can't corrupt their consciousness. What did he say? He said that if we want to borrow his power, we have to see blood. Otherwise, he'll become weaker and weaker. Devil blades all had the ability to kill. This was how they existed for a long time. The more they killed, the stronger they became. For example, Chen Zhao had used it twice before without killing. The devil blade was consuming its own power. If this went on, it would become an ordinary blade. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1720. This meant that he might not be able to use the demon knife in most battles. After all, there might not be blood in many battles, especially battles between spiritualists. Most of the time, they wouldn't stop until one of them was dead. For example, Chen Zhao's few conflicts with the psionic ability team had all stopped at the right time. We'll end the negotiation here, Chen Zhao threatened. But you have to cooperate with us to find the medicine first. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now. President, he's starting to guide us. Hikari and Kama were naturally the happiest. They didn't care about the demon knife. They only cared about their brother. It's here. I can feel it. Your brother's medicine is upstairs. 2 people and 2 mice stopped in front of a 5-story apartment. It was obviously a cheap apartment. It was specially provided for low-income people. Many families with low incomes, even families of 4 or 5 people, were squeezed into a small apartment of 20 to 30 square meters. This kind of cheap apartment was very common in Japan, especially in Tokyo. Can you accurately sense which floor it's on? Search one floor at a time. After a while, they arrived at the 5th floor. It should be on this floor, West said. The smell here is the strongest. I can smell the medicine too. The 2 mice didn't wait for West to lead the way. They ran up first. It's here. The 2 mice stopped before a door. You 2 hide first. West put away the demon knife. Chen Zhao had the 2 mice hide, because he could sense that there were only 2 people in the room. One of them had some spiritual power, while the other was a normal person. Of course, Chen Zhao also smelled the medicine. Knock, knock, knock. Who is it? Just then the door opened. The moment Chiyo opened the door, she fell to the ground in fear. Ah! Chiyo's scream attracted Chiyo Kaori. Xiaoyi, Mr. Chen, you're? Mafia, he's a mafia, Chiyo yelled in fear. Are you here to kill me? Chen Zhao and West's faces darkened. What did you do to make us come all the way here? Chiyo Kaori froze and her expression darkened. Mr. Chen, I need to explain. Explain what? What explanation do you need? Chen Zhao smiled at Chiyo Kaori. You hurt my sister. No, 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 I didn't. If I had hurt her, she would have been fed to the sharks. She is my sister. Chiyokori's face was gloomy. She was a little protective. After all, she was her younger sister, and they had depended on each other since they were young. Chiyokori knew that her younger sister had many shortcomings. However, she was his sister. Because of this, Chiyokori couldn't tolerate what Chenjiao had done. Miss Chiyo, I'm not here to cause trouble for your sister. Then what are you doing here? My pet ran away. We found that it seemed to have run into your house. What pet? We don't have any cats or dogs. It's not a cat or a dog. In fact, it's a rat. A very big rat. You're here to look for Little Gray. Chiyo's face revealed a suspicious expression. Little Gray, is that the new name you gave it? If it likes a new name, maybe I'll consider renaming it, Chenjiao said indifferently. Can you give it back to me now? Yi, what Little Gray? Chiyokori was also confused. I picked it up on the road a few days ago. It was injured, so I brought it back. Picking up a rat on the street? This girl's taste was really unique. Chiyokori didn't plan to keep it for herself, even though she didn't want to part with Little Gray. However, its owner had come to find them. Moreover, the owner was someone they couldn't afford to offend. So she could only carry Little Gray out of the room. Chiyokori's pupils suddenly contracted. The big rat was very weak, but Chiyokori could recognize its aura. It also looked almost the same as the previous two ferrets. Chiyokori suddenly reached out and blocked Chiyokori. Chiyokori's eyes were like torches as she stared at Chenjiao and West behind him. Chiyokori's eyes were like torches as she stared at Chenjiao and West behind him. Mr. Chen, you're saying that the rat is your pet? Yes. Is there a problem? Can you show me evidence? Chenjiao snapped his fingers and song and sickle ran out. Can the two of them count as evidence? Chiyokori narrowed her eyes. She had already recognized them. These two mice were the ones that he had encountered in the abandoned factory. Miss Chiyo, I believe you don't want the situation to become more complicated, right? Give Little Gray back to me, and I'll leave. Chiyokori's expression darkened. She'd appeared gentle and introverted before. In reality, the real Chiyokori was an extremely proud person. I can take it away, but you have to at least give me the right to see you. Your sister is an ordinary person. Are you sure you want her to know your identity? Chenjiao asked. You already knew my identity? Chiyokori furrowed her brows. This wasn't a good feeling. She'd thought that she'd hidden it well. No one had ever been able to find out her identity before she took the initiative to reveal it. But Chenjiao had clearly broken this norm. Chiyokori was confused. She couldn't understand the conversation between Chenjiao and her sister. This man said that her sister wasn't an ordinary person. What did he mean? Or was it because her English was too poor and she misunderstood? Yes, I knew from the first day. The light in the room started to show unstable voltage. Chiyokori seemed to want to fight Chenjiao directly. Cough. Little girl, don't be too stubborn. You don't have any direct conflicts of interest with us. We might have some small misunderstandings before, but there's no need to turn against each other, right? West walked in and stood before Chiyokori. He picked up the medicine and turned to leave. Chiyokori realized that she couldn't move at all. She could only let the old foreigner walk around her. But she couldn't even move a finger. Miss Chiyo, we still need a guide. If you're interested, you're welcome to continue your previous work. Goodbye. Chiyokori's face turned red in anger. Chiyokori didn't break free until Chenjiao and West left. Damn it! Chiyokori charged out of the room and chased after them. But when she rushed to the walkway, Chenjiao, West, and the two skunk scythe had all disappeared. Sister, who exactly are those people? And they said that you're not an ordinary person. Who are you? None of your business, Chiyokori said with a dark expression. She didn't want her sister to get involved in supernatural events. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1721. After walking around that night, Chenjiao felt the presence of monsters around him at least 10 times. He didn't know how chaotic Tokyo was right now, but he was sure that the government's head was about to explode. After returning to the hotel, Chenjiao looked at Song and Sickle. I saved your brother. Where's the thing you promised me? Give it to me. Yao is still unconscious. The pouch is in his stomach. We can only take it out after he wakes up. Chen Zhao's face darkened. How big was the pouch? It was actually in his stomach. Wes, keep an eye on them. Don't let them escape. Yes, I'll have more watch them. Wes was also an old fox. It was better to let others do this. But he didn't have to watch them too closely. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was chaotic outside. The three of them weren't strong, but they weren't weak either. But they were afraid that someone would target them. It would be fine if it was a human. At worst, they would be captured and used as a shikigami, or they would be sealed. But if they were targeted by monsters, they might even be treated as snacks. Dad, where's the rat? Where's the big rat? Jerlin ran in again. Fei Lai followed behind, clearly not looking good. She was afraid of rats and hated them. Don't ask why. Jerlin had already run to Tsang and Sickle. She reached out to pull their tails. She didn't know what fear was. To Jerlin, she could play with all the big pets in the house. Rats could too. Standing beside Chen Zhao, Fei Lai whispered. If Jerlin says she wants to keep them, just kill them secretly. Anyway, they can't appear in our house. Song and Sickle shuddered. They were monsters. They'd heard Fei Lai's voice. Chen Zhao kicked Rhizome and Sickle. You understand English? We're over 300 years old. 3 of us is 900 years old. What one of us learns, the other can learn too. We have a few master's degrees alone. Do you think English is a problem for us? What are you so arrogant about? Chen Zhao sneered. I'll sacrifice you to the demon knife. Song and Sickle stopped talking. Chen Zhao's fist was bigger. Song, Sickle, and Yao were placed in an empty room. Little Jerlin didn't mind it at all. However, most of the people in the association couldn't stand living under the same roof as rats. Fei Lai usually gave Jerlin the impression that she was a loving mother. But when it came to rats, Jerlin couldn't help it. She, on the other hand, acted out of character. In any case, she did not allow little Jerlin to keep mice. Greenwood Plains, Suicide Forest. Although this place was originally the world's holy land for suicide, however, there were still a small number of tourist groups that treated this place as a tourist attraction. But now, this place was completely off limits. Since 2 months ago, this place had been shrouded in mist. Several tourist groups had disappeared in the forest because of this. In fact, the forest of the Greenwood Plains had been completely surrounded. All the shrines had sent their elites to set up enchantments here. The Tokyo Grand Shrine's encampment was to the southeast of Aoki Plains Forest. 30 spiritualists set up a barrier here. The leader was a girl who looked like a high school student. In fact, she was a high school student and a candidate for the Grand Shrine of Tokyo. Nagasaka Reiko, the daughter of the monk Seiwa. She was also the granddaughter of Yoko Shirai. In Japan, most of the shrines were managed and passed down through the family inheritance method. Of course, normally, the shaman and the abbot were the leaders. One was in charge of internal affairs, while the other was in charge of external affairs. However, the two belonged to 2 completely different priesthood systems. One was Shinto, mainly serving the Tianjin gods, who were led by the Amaterasu great god. The other was Buddhist, of course, serving the Buddha. However, this kind of combination wasn't rare in Japanese shrines. Although there were religious conflicts in Japan, they weren't fierce. They would even merge with each other. The Tokyo Grand Shrine wasn't an exception. The shamans were like the spokespersons of God. So most of the time, their words represented the will of God. Some shrines' shamans were specific. In order to maintain the purity of the bloodline, they would use intermarriage within the clan to give birth. Just like the Japanese royal family. The royal family in the past used intermarriage within the clan to ensure the purity of the bloodline. The Tokyo Grand Shrine didn't have such a requirement. For example, the current shaman, Yoko Shirai, was an outsider. However, Yoko Shirai herself was an extremely powerful spiritualist. Plus, she had an illustrious background and was also Zhang Tianyi's student. To put it bluntly, she was equivalent to returning from studying in the spiritual world. Therefore, it was only natural for her to marry into Changban and take over the position of shaman. Damn it, the miasma is expanding outward again. Nagasaka Reiko cursed. Retreat 1 kilometer. Although they had set up a barrier here to prevent the spread of the miasma, but the effect was not obvious. Miss, the miasma is growing especially fast this time. I'm afraid 1 kilometer is not enough. We have to retreat at least 5 kilometers. The one who spoke was Nagasaka Reiko's henchman. Every generation of shamans had their own henchmen and followers. It was similar to the change of government. Those in power would have their own leadership team. Of course, to subdue henchmen and followers, one needed enough ability and personal charm. Then retreat 5 kilometers. Nagasaka Reiko said with an ugly expression. By the way, report the situation here to Grandma. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion in front of them. What's going on? A group of monsters wants to break through our line of defense and enter the miasma. Damn bastards, destroy them all for me. Nagasaka Reiko had a fiery temper, and she was in a depressed mood. Just like in human society, there was also worship among monsters. There were always some monsters who felt that the appearance of Tamamo no Mae could change the situation of monsters. Therefore, they couldn't wait to pledge their loyalty to her. This was not the first group of monsters. Before this, there were several groups of monsters who also had the same idea. At this moment, a bird monster in the sky rushed into the mist. Not long after the bird monster disappeared into the miasma, a miserable scream was heard. A bunch of idiots. Nagasaka Reiko said with a black face. These monsters also couldn't escape the misfortune of entering the miasma. They thought that they could hug the thigh, but in fact, they would only become nourishment for the stone of slaughter. Would Tamamo no Mae care about the loyalty of these ants? Obviously not. To him, these weak little monsters were no different from humans in essence. At this time, the miasma spread out a bit more. Nagasaka Reiko quickly retreated with her people. If they also fell into the miasma, it would be very troublesome. There was only one person who could freely enter and exit the miasma, Zhang Tianyi. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1722. Early in the morning, Chen Zhao did not expect Zhang Tianyi to come at this time. Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi looked at the sumptuous breakfast before him, and his face darkened. Is this what you eat every day? More accurately, it's breakfast. Last night, we found 3 corpses in the suburbs. They were all powerful monsters, and confirmed to be 3 of Tamamo no Mae's 4 generals. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao. You did it. Yes. Didn't you say that killing the 4 generals could stop Tamamo no Mae from appearing? They happened to be together. It was a rare opportunity, so I killed them. Chen Zhao asked. What? Is Tamamo no longer going to appear? You came all the way here to thank me? Zhang Tianyi smiled wryly. It's not that Tamamo no longer will appear, but that she'll be unsealed earlier. What? It didn't work? Chen Zhao asked. No, we all fell for it. Stopping the 4 generals can stop Tamamo no Mae from appearing, but it's actually Tamamo no Mae's scheme. I don't understand how this has anything to do with her. I didn't either, but the 3 generals you killed had remnants of Tamamo no Mae's demonic aura on them. And then, they were born because of Tamamo no Mae. Tamamo no Mae left monster chi on them. Before she was sealed, she purposely said that their appearance would cause her to come out. That's not wrong though. Zhang Tianyi bitterly smiled and shook his head. Because once they appear, the spirit realm will do everything in their power to hunt them down, and their demonic chi will return to Tamamo no Mae. Now that Tamamo no Mae is sealed in the stone of slaughter, the demonic chi has become masterless. It will attack the seal on the stone of slaughter from the outside, forcing the seal to collapse even faster. With both the inside and the outside working together, Tamamo no Mae will appear earlier. So you're here to denounce me for my crimes? Do you think I dare? Zhang Tianyi rolled his eyes. You're the main force this time. Are you prepared? When do you think Tamamo no Mae will appear? It won't be more than 3 days. As for the exact time, it's not up to us to decide. It's up to Tamamo no Mae to decide. She can come out whenever she wants. Let me ask you something, Chen Zhao said. What? Is this Tamamo related to the 9-tailed fox in China? I don't know. Zhang Tianyi thought that Chen Zhao was going to ask something. Rumor has it that Tamamo no Mae is a 9-tailed fox from China. She came to Japan to cause trouble. However, this was only a rumor. There was no concrete evidence. Also, it was rumored that Tamamo no Mae was a man. However, it seemed like even the Japanese could not prove it. This was because no matter where they were in Japan, nine-tailed fox or Tamamonome would always appear as a woman. Furthermore, the nine-tailed fox was rumored to be the fox of Green Hill. It wasn't a mountain spirit or a wild monster. There were also wild foxes that became spirits, but they wouldn't grow more than one tail. There were only females in the Green Hill foxes, no males. If they wanted to continue the family line, they had to go out and find a man. Since Tamamonome was a nine-tailed fox, she should have come from the Green Mountains. If that was the case, then Tamamonome should have been a woman. No, more accurately, it should be a female. Of course, Chen Zhao was more interested in the legendary beauty's face. Just how beautiful was this peerless face? How much longer do you want to eat? Until I'm finished. Why? Do you want some too? Come with me to the forest of Greenwood Plains. Guard there. There's no rush, right? Once Tamamonome comes out, we have to stop her immediately, Zhang Tianyi said frankly. I can't stop her, so you have to do it. Of course, this was also because he cherished his life. If he wanted to stop Tamamonome, he might have to risk his life. It was better to let Chen Zhao take the lead. After all, Chen Zhao's strongest point was his thick skin. But my wife and kids are here. I'll watch for you. Zhang Tianyi felt a headache coming on. Fine, watch for me. But I'm telling you, if anything happens to my wife and kids, I'll tear down Dragon Tiger Mountain. Okay, I'll make sure your wife and kids are safe. With Zhang Tianyi's guarantee, Chen Zhao wasn't worried about anything happening to his wife and kids. As long as it wasn't a powerful demon like Tamamonome, nothing could threaten Fei Lai and the kids. But she doesn't need to come so early. The yang energy is so strong during the day. Tamamonome probably won't come out during the day. Boom! Just then there was an earthquake on the ground. The tremor was very strong. In the tremor, Chen Zhao could clearly feel a strong demonic aura. Chen Zhao really wanted to slap himself. I jinxed it. It hasn't come out yet, and there's already such a terrifying demonic aura. No wonder it's a powerful demon. I wonder if she's pretty. Chen Zhao started imagining Tamamonome's unparalleled beauty. I heard she's really pretty. She can mesmerize even the heavens. Zhang Tianyi started acting like an old man again. With a conflicted expression, he said, I suddenly want to go and see. The miasma is gone. What's going on? Why is the miasma gone? I don't know. During the earthquake, the miasma retreated a few kilometers. Nagasaka Reiko's expression was serious. I'm afraid that thing is going to come out. Just then a group of people came from behind. Most of them were monk soldiers. Some of them were dressed like witches. The ones in the lead were Hikari Yoko and Holy Harmony. Grandma, father, why are you here? That thing is going to appear. How can we not come? Hikari Yoko said seriously. Grandma, is Tamamonome really going to appear? Nagasaka Reiko's expression was complicated. It was hard to tell whether it was excitement or fear. No matter how terrifying Tamamonome was, she was still a legendary existence. But now, they were about to witness history, an existence that only existed in history and legends. At this moment, another strong earthquake occurred on the ground. On Mount Fuji in the distance, the snow on the top of the mountain caused the rocks to tumble down. Very soon, it became a landslide. An even stronger demonic aura emanated from the forest of the Greenwood Plains. At the same time, the miasma shrunk again. However, in the area that had been covered by the miasma, the leaves had withered. There was no vitality at all. Another group of people came from behind, but they weren't from the shrine. They weren't even Japanese. Instead, they were spiritualists from other countries. There were quite a few of them too. Judging from their skin and hair color, they could form a United Nations. Ms. Yoko, hello. One of the older priests walked over. He seemed to know Hikari Yoko. Father Oker, you're here. Hikari Yoko called out in surprise and joy. Although this place isn't illuminated by the Lord's light, the lambs here also enjoy the Lord's glory. They can't be blasphemed by evil. Father Oker's words sounded more like a missionary. Those who didn't know might even think that he was a devout priest. In truth, Father Oker had already been expelled from the headquarters due to his presumptuous contact with heretical magic. Nine Heavens God Emperor. Chapter 1723. Although the church was also one of the three major religions in this world, they were more resistant to foreign religions. They felt that other religions were all heresy, and that other gods were all evil gods. Father Ochre was, of course, a staunch shepherd of the Lord. However, he felt that the magic or spells of other religions had their merits. Simply put, Father Ochre was a believer of God, but not a believer of the church. When it came to upholding justice, he was almost impeccable. For example, this time, the seal on the Japanese Rock of Slaughter had loosened. He directly brought people to help. Although the Japanese spiritual world had already sent out a request for help to the entire world. But Father Ochre came purely on his own accord. Not long after, another group of spiritualists arrived. This time, all of them had blonde hair and blue eyes. Vestana rubbed her nose. The place was filled with an unpleasant smell. She smelled demonic aura. Even though she wasn't a spiritualist, she still smelled demonic aura. The demonic aura here was so thick that even ordinary people could smell it. She and the psionic team already saw a large group of spiritualists in front of them. However, they didn't go up to greet them. This was her first time leading a team on a mission abroad. However, as soon as they arrived in Japan, the Japanese spiritual world sent out a request for help. This forced them to change their plans. Of course, this time in Japan, Vestana also realized the difference between a spiritual desert and a spiritual peak. During the first 2 days of her arrival, she was still somewhat proud. Then, she found a few Japanese spiritual organizations and communicated with them. The process was quite pleasant. After all, the Japanese paranormal organizations had treated them warmly after receiving the money. However, they didn't want to be treated warmly. They wanted to communicate. Of course, it wasn't that there was no communication at all. However, through this communication, Vestana felt similar to the feelings of the Chinese football fans. The other party also pointed out their shortcomings. For example, the members of the psionic team were too simple. Their individual strength couldn't be said to be very weak. They could only be considered average. However, when they teamed up for battle, their cooperation was almost non-existent. If it was a one-on-one battle, they could still fight back and forth. They could win 2 or 3 out of 10 battles. However, if it was a team battle, it was simply unsightly. The other party won almost every battle with an absolute advantage. They even won with 0 casualties. Vestana made up her mind to look for an Eastern instructor when she returned. With enough money, he would definitely be able to find a powerful instructor. Dongfang. Miss Vestana, the man in front seems to be waving at us, Fritz said. Vestana looked ahead and saw a man dressed like a priest waving at them from the crowd in front of them. Vestana stepped forward and greeted the priest. Hello, how can I help you? You're an ordinary person? Or are you so strong that I can no longer tell how strong you are? Father Ochre asked. Hello, Father, I am an ordinary person. Ordinary people? All right, call your men over. Father Ochre said. He did not ask why a normal person like Vestana would join in the fun. Everyone has their own reasons. He would not interfere with other people's decisions. Call my people over? What for? Little girl, Father Ochre has the reputation of being the #1 saint in Northern Europe. He called your people over to give them blessings, Ryoko said. Oh, please wait a moment. Vestana called the psionic team over. All of you, stand over there and gather together. Father Ochre ordered the psionic team members to stand together with the people from Tokyo Grand Shrine. After the two sides stood together, Father Ochre activated his magic. Holy light. Father Ochre let out a resonant shout. In an instant, a ball of holy energy appeared above the heads of the dozens of people. The holy light enveloped everyone, and everyone felt their bodies were filled with power. Even Vestana felt her body was filled with power, and her spirit was at its peak. Miss Yoko, do you want a blessing? No need for that. You should save your mana for a direct confrontation with Tamamo no Mei, Ryoko said. The two of them were evenly matched. If Father Ochre gave her a blessing, half of Father Ochre's mana would be used up, while Ryoko might not be able to increase her strength by even half. So in comparison, it was a bit of a loss. All right, if you need anything, you can ask me anytime, Father Ochre said generously. At this time, More and more people arrived. There were already 200 to 300 people gathered here. And the number was still increasing. Some were excited, while others had a serious expression. There were so many psychics from all over the world, including many experts. This was also one of the gathering points. The other gathering points of Aoki Plain also had quite a lot of people. Preliminary estimation, there were at least 2,000 psychics from all over the world. Kaori, there are quite a lot of people here, Sakurako exclaimed. This place was like a huge and noisy market, with people coming and going. Ishino Murata kept swinging his left arm. His arm had already been reattached, and it was quickly healed using magic. But Ishino Murata was still not used to it. Little Devil Star was wiping 2 brand new katanas. Chio Kaori's expression was very heavy. There are so many people, Mitsuki Kishimoto said doubtfully. No matter how strong the 1,000-year fox spirit is, she can't win, right? Hard to say. Chio Kaori did not know how strong the legendary Tamamo no Mei was. But her spiritual retainer was telling her to run, run. This was the first time Chio Kaori's spiritual retainer had lost its composure and panicked. In the past, she had also encountered strong enemies. But even the legendary monsters, her spiritual retainer had never retreated. As long as she needed it, it would always fight bravely for her. But this time, her spiritual retainer was not normal. Just how terrifying was the legendary Tamamo no Mei? She could actually scare her spiritual retainer like this. Oh, Miss Chio, you're here too. Chio Kaori heard an annoying voice. Turning around, she saw Chen Zhao walking over with his hands in his pockets. What are you doing here? Watching the show, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Chio Kaori looked at him unkindly. Aren't you afraid of dying here? I won't die. Chen Zhao grinned. Kaori, is he your enemy? Do you need our help? Mitsuki Kishimoto asked in a low voice. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1724. Chio Kaori and her companions were all on the same side. Years of revolutionary friendship had made them trust each other. They were all pointing their guns at the same time. Therefore, Chen Zhao seemed a bit weak when facing the 5 of them. Are you sure you want to fight me here? That's not a smart choice. Chen Zhao looked at the 5 with an annoying smile. It doesn't take much effort to take care of you. Little Devil had already taken out a pair of katanas. Mr. Chen, do you need help? Westana walked over with her people. Of course, she wasn't here to help Chen Zhao. She was here to watch the show. She didn't know how strong these Japanese spiritualists were. It would be great if they could teach Chen Zhao an unforgettable lesson. However, she had clearly underestimated Chen Zhao's shamelessness. Of course. I'm glad you came to help me. Thank you so much. I'll leave them to you, Chen Zhao said decisively. Westana and the members of the psionic ability team were all unhappy. Very unhappy. Rumble. Just then there was another earthquake. This time, it was much stronger than before. Many people couldn't stand still. To the Japanese, they had long since gotten used to this feeling of being shaken at the slightest provocation. But foreigners might not be used to it. The miasma had shrunk even more. The demonic aura in the air was much thicker. However, this earthquake gave Vestana an excuse to get away. We should fight against the evil monsters together instead of wasting our power on internal fights, Westana said righteously. Of course, if you insist on fighting, we won't interfere, Vestana said sternly. Chen Zhao couldn't help but give her the middle finger. Fuck, that pitiful university student had become so cunning. Were all politicians so shameless? Chen Zhao didn't think that he had also become the kind of people he hated the most, rich people. At this moment, the sky began to darken. At this moment, everyone present could not help but look up. Solar eclipse. Chen Zhao frowned. Was this a coincidence? No matter how strong Tamamo was, she couldn't change the trajectory of the celestial bodies. If she was really strong enough to change the stars, then Chen Zhao had to admit that he lost. In that case, he had to admit that he had lost. The probability of people seeing a total solar eclipse was much lower than a lunar eclipse. The lunar eclipse could be seen by half of the people on Earth. However, because the moon blocked the sun during a total solar eclipse, the moon's shadow was visible during a total solar eclipse. Through the moon's shadow, it was reflected on Earth with a diameter of more than 100 kilometers. In other words, When a solar eclipse occurs, only people within a radius of more than 100 kilometers will be able to see the total solar eclipse. People outside this area could only see a partial solar eclipse at most. Therefore, Chen Zhao felt that the probability of this coincidence was too low. But it really happened. There was another possibility. Tamamo no Mei had already calculated the time of the eclipse. The shadow was slowly eroding towards the sun. Gradually, the entire land was plunged into darkness. When the sun was completely covered, the outer corona could still be seen. However, the corona did not last long. The moment the shadow completely enveloped the corona, true darkness descended. A gust of wind blew through the center of the greenwood plain. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew that a peerless demon had been born. A huge figure the size of a small mountain appeared in the center of the greenwood plain. Chen Zhao looked over. It was a body even larger than Amanda Didier. A nine-tailed demon fox. Boundless demonic aura spread out from the nine-tailed fox's body. The trees around Chen Zhao were blown down by the wind. Then an even more shocking scene appeared. Mount Fuji erupted without warning. Crimson magma and volcanic ash burst out and soared into the sky. The sky was immediately covered by volcanic ash. It was too fast. Before the eclipse was over, the volcanic ash had already covered the sky. At that moment, be it the Japanese spiritualists or the reinforcements, they were all stunned by this shocking scene. Was this the phenomenon caused by the appearance of a peerless demon? Formation! Yoko Hakui, who was at the front, yelled. The people from the Tokyo Grand Shrine formed a huge formation. The outermost were the monk soldiers. In the center were the 5 witches. Yoko Hakui stood in the center and took a golden bow from her shoulder. Wheat ears were carved on both sides of the bow. The bowstring seemed to be made of hemp. Chen Zhao looked at the Tokyo Grand Shrine's formation. He didn't understand formations, but it didn't stop him from observing the flow of magical power. All the monk soldiers and witches poured magical power into Yoko Hakui at the same time. Yoko Hakui slowly pulled the bowstring. There were no arrows on the bowstring. However, Hakui Yoko had condensed the purest mana into a golden arrow. Just then, the huge nine-tailed fox noticed the commotion. But he didn't stop it. Instead, he watched the Tokyo Grand Shrine form the formation, and Yoko Hakui pull the bow. Suddenly, 2 huge nets appeared on both sides of the nine-tailed fox. The nets rose from the left and right sides, and merged into an even larger net, covering the nine-tailed fox. This was a premeditated ambush from the shrines on both sides. Yoko Hakui's eyes flashed, and she released the bowstring. The golden arrow turned into a beam of light, and shot toward the nine-tailed fox. Whoosh! Wherever the golden arrow passed, the forest was split open. That was an indescribable arrow that carried with it a mighty force that could destroy anything. The nine-tailed fox lowered its head, and suddenly opened its mouth. Roar! In an instant the roar erupted like a monstrous wave. The golden arrow disappeared before it could even touch the nine-tailed fox. The trees in front of the nine-tailed fox were uprooted. The area within a few kilometers had become a barren wasteland. Not a single blade of grass could be seen. Everyone in the vicinity had already disappeared. The Tokyo Grand Shrine's formation also collapsed. The dozen monk soldiers didn't even have a complete corpse. The witches in the inner circle all spat out a mouthful of blood. Ikari Yoko's face showed a hint of decline, and her body was on the verge of collapse. The nine-tailed fox's 9 tails slapped the ground heavily. In an instant, the ground within a radius of several kilometers began to crack. The cracks spread like a spider web. Many spiritualists fell into the cracks. Everyone was shocked by the scene. This is Tamamo no Mei? Vistana's face was filled with shock. This monster. Could humans really fight against it? God Emperor of the 9 Heavens. Chapter 1725. Following that, the dark clouds in the sky rumbled, and rocks carrying scorching lava fell from the sky. Just like a meteor shower, if they were separated by a screen. If it was through a screen, it would definitely be a beautiful scene. However, when one was personally there, one would experience a hellish feeling. Chiyokori looked at the falling rocks. This is the end of the world. This was a battle that couldn't go on. What they were facing wasn't a real monster at all. It was nature. They weren't thinking about how to defeat Tamamo. They were thinking about how to survive. Hundreds of spiritualists had died in the earth-shattering battle. The others were just struggling to survive. Chiyo Kaori Little Devil, Kishimoto Mitsuki, Murata Ishino, and Sakurako wanted to escape. But the ground in front of them had cracked into an island. They were trapped on a piece of land that was less than 30 square meters. There was a bottomless chasm around them. Chen Zhao also looked at the collapsing sky and earth. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Amazing! Unimaginably powerful." Whether Chen Zhao was willing to admit it or not, the power of the fox demon was beyond his imagination. At this time, Yoko and the people from Tokyo Grand Shrine once again formed a formation. They knew the difference in power was too great, but they still didn't plan to retreat, because they knew that they couldn't retreat. They were less than 200 kilometers away from Tokyo. Once the nine-tailed fox approached Tokyo, the casualties wouldn't be dozens or hundreds. It would be tens or hundreds of thousands of people. To be honest, Chen Zhao quite admired them. Putting aside the historical and political issues, this was the first time. No matter which country, they all had their own noble people. Confrontation. A huge confrontation. Rune rose and hit the nine-tailed fox's head. The nine-tailed fox shrieked in pain. The nine-tailed fox waved its tails, shaking the earth. In the distance, another rune rose in the forest of Aoki Plain. It was the Bing rune. The rune slammed heavily onto the nine-tailed fox's body. The nine-tailed fox raised its head and howled. Another fighting rune rose. Then it was Zhe Jia Zhen Lai Zai Qian. The 9 words mantra was a Chinese Taoist mantra spell. It was also known as the 6 Jia secret blessing. It came from the 17th volume of Biopuzi, the 5th paragraph. However, the 9 words of Sanskrit was only known to people because it was mentioned in Japanese anime. In fact, the 9 secret words were pure Taoist incantations. The different word orders of the 9 secret words would produce different effects. If they were arranged in order, it would be the holy word. Writing it normally could dispel nightmares and ward off ghosts and evil spirits. If he used his magic power and spiritual power, he would have the power to subdue demons. Now the 9 shrines were working together to form the great array of truth. Its power could be said to be top-notch. The nine-tailed fox was slapped by the 9 words incantation, and in an instant, it went berserk. Nine-tailed fox's front paw slammed heavily on the ground. In an instant, a giant claw burning with black flames descended from the sky. The members of the 9 shrines started chanting loudly. The 9 secret words regrouped and turned into a giant golden palm, rising from the bottom. It happened to collide head-on with the giant claw burning with black flames. Bang! A terrifying power rippled in the air. The giant golden palm suddenly turned into specks of starlight. The giant claw that was burning with black flames was still unscathed as it landed on the ground. The impact brought with it black flames, which spread in all directions. The first to bear the brunt of the impact was the array formed by the 9 shrines. Under the impact, it was almost non-existent. The great array of truth collapsed instantly. The spiritualists who were trapped here watched the battle that was like a battle between gods. Everyone was deeply shocked by this. Some people managed to escape, but only a few. More than half of them had died in the earth-shattering battle when the nine-tailed fox was born. Many others died in the battle between the nine-tailed fox and the 9 shrines. Right now, the 9 shrines also suffered heavy casualties. The black flames couldn't be extinguished once they touched a person. It was foxfire. Legend had it that it could burn anything. Only the rain of Green Hill could extinguish foxfire. Chen Zhao walked up to Hikari Yoko. Hikari Yoko lay on the ground weakly. Her son Seiwa had already been reduced to ashes in the first wave of impact. She had a chance to protect herself. After all, everyone in the Tokyo Shrine had focused their magic on her. She couldn't say that she could fight against the nine-tailed fox, but she could protect herself. But she had to protect her granddaughter, Nagasaka Reiko. She used most of her magic to protect Nagasaka Reiko. Now she was heavily injured. Nagasaka Reiko hugged Hikari Yoko. "Ms. Yoko, you don't look good." Hikari Yoko raised her head slightly and looked at him weakly. "Mr. Chun, why are you here?" "That's strange. Is it hard to understand why I'm here?" "I thought you left already," Hikari Yoko said honestly. She'd seen his power, so it was definitely possible that he'd escaped. Hikari Yoko looked up at the nine-tailed fox. Teacher? Why isn't teacher here? Teacher? Where are you? Hikari Yoko yelled in grief. She felt that only Zhang Tianyi could turn the situation around. But to her disappointment, Zhang Tianyi didn't appear. Her yell attracted the nine-tailed fox's attention. Nine-tailed fox didn't forget Hikari Yoko. She'd been causing trouble for her ever since she came out of the stone of slaughter. Nine-tailed fox's bloody mouth descended from the sky, biting at Hikari Yoko and Nagasaka Reiko. Chen Zhao lifted his foot and kicked Nine-tailed fox's head. Nine-tailed fox took a step back in pain. Can you show some respect? Hikari Yoko, Nagasaka Reiko, and Chiyo Kaori, and the others behind all had stiff expressions. Wasn't this guy a bit too daring? Facing the nine-tailed fox, who had the power to destroy the world, he didn't retreat at all, nor was he timid at all. Nine-tailed fox lowered her head again and looked at Chen Zhao up close. Chen Zhao just stood there. He didn't attack or retreat. He was less than 10 meters away from Nine-tailed fox. They looked at each other, even though Nine-tailed fox's gaze was all focused on Chen Zhao. But Hikari Yoko and the others felt endless fear. Even though it was just a gaze, it still gave them a huge sense of pressure. Who are you? Nine-tailed fox finally said. I heard that you're a peerless beauty, so I came to see if it's true and see if I can kill you, Chen Zhao said. Change into your human form. Let me see if you live up to the title of peerless beauty. Everyone broke out in a cold sweat. They'd never seen such a bold person before. Who was that? It was the legendary world-destroying demon. Chen Zhao actually spoke to her in such a tone. Nine Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1726. The nine-tailed fox was gone. A woman walked out of the black fire. She was barefoot and had long legs. She wore a light muslin dress with a low collar. Her breasts were faintly discernible. Although her figure was not exaggerated to the point of exploding, it gave people a feeling that it was just right. Of course, to use the most popular saying, that pair of long legs could be played for a year. Her face was like jade. She was breathtakingly beautiful and had a hint of feminine charm. Her hair reached her waist, and she wore a pair of white jade bracelets on her arms. Her hands were slender, as if they didn't have any bones. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the 9 furry tails on her back. What do you think? What do I look like? Tamamonome stood before everyone and stared at Chen Zhao. Beautiful, Chen Zhao said honestly. But I guess people in your era never saw a beauty, so any woman can be called a peerless beauty. Tamamonome was indeed unbelievably beautiful. But it was an exaggeration to say that she was devastatingly beautiful. Besides, if she really had a devastatingly beautiful face, she would not have been sealed in the stone of slaughter in the end. Hearing Chen Zhao's words, Tamamonome's 9 tails curled up. Tamamonome's body floated up, breaking free from gravity. Her eyes glowed purple, and her long hair moved without any wind. Now you can die. One moment she was as light as a breeze. The next moment, she was like a mountain crashing down. Everyone felt a boundless pressure. Chen Zhao twisted his neck. That's right. Since you don't have a peerless beauty, let's fight for real now. Mortal. Tamamonome said softly and raised 2 fingers. A black flame swept across the ground. It shot up from Chen Zhao's feet and ignited his body. When everyone looked at Chen Zhao, they all thought that he would definitely die. However, Chen Zhao didn't seem to feel anything. Let's both show our true abilities. You show your real body, and I show my trump card. This is a meaningless test. Even if we fight until the end of time, we won't be able to decide the winner. I underestimated you, but if you want to force me to show my real body, let's see what you can do. Tamamonome didn't want to kill Chen Zhao because of his words. Definitely not. She just wanted to kill him. He just wanted to kill Chen Zhao. That was all. Ms. Yoko, you really should leave this place. Otherwise, I can't guarantee your safety. Hikari Yoko had long since lost all thoughts of running for her life. To her, not dying in battle here was a dereliction of duty on her part. Chen Zhao shook his head, seeing that she wasn't going to leave. Then her life and death had nothing to do with him. Chen Zhao's figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, Chen Zhao grabbed one of Tamamonome's tails. However, Tamamonome's reaction was incomparably fast. She turned around and swiped with her claws. A piece of Chen Zhao's chest was torn off. In pain, Chen Zhao punched through Tamamonome's chest, grabbed her heart and pulled it out. Tamamonome flew backward. Chen Zhao also took a few steps back. Tamamonome looked down at her empty chest, and then at her heart in Chen Zhao's hand. Chen Zhao casually crushed the heart, muttering to himself, "What a freak." His heart had been dug out, but he didn't show the slightest change in expression. Tamamonome licked the blood on her hand. The hole in her chest was closing up. Chen Zhao's chest was also healing. Hikari Yoko, Nagasaka Reiko, Chio Keiru, and the others all stared at Chen Zhao dumbfounded. What had just happened? Had that guy crushed Tamamonome's heart? He hadn't lost in that exchange. Tamamonome raised one arm high. She grabbed at the sky and then pulled it down. The dark clouds in the sky suddenly seemed to be ignited. All the dark clouds in the sky turned red. Then, stones that had been ignited fell from the sky at a super high speed. They had accurately locked onto Chen Zhao's position. Fist shadows. Chen Zhao waved his fists that filled the sky. The stones that had been ignited were shattered 100 meters in the air. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air again. So powerful. Everyone had seen Tamamonome's strength. Therefore, they were already used to it. But Chen Zhao was actually on par with Tamamonome. He wasn't any weaker than Tamamonome. This made them turn pale with fright. "Is that all you've got?" Chen Zhao smiled at Tamamonome. "If you don't use your real body, I'll really kill you. That's all." Tamamonome waved her 9 tails. Behind her, a large amount of miasma appeared. Then, Tamamonome's clones appeared in the miasma. 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, there were countless clones. Some were flying in the air, while others were standing on the ground. They were all in different poses and had extraordinary auras. "What do you think of this?" Hikari Yoko's face was pale. Nagasaka Reiko was shaking in fear. No matter how strong Chen Zhao was, he was just one person. But Tamamonome could have thousands of clones. How could they fight? They couldn't win at all. A great demon was indeed a great demon. Every single one of his methods was so shocking. Any spell could shock the world. Chen Zhao lifted his arm and pointed at Tamamonome. 7,000 stone swords appeared in the sky above Chen Zhao. Each stone sword radiated with a piercing murderous intent. The moment Chen Zhao's move appeared, everyone's expressions froze. Disbelief was written all over their faces. Tamamonome's thousands of clones faced Chen Zhao's thousands of flying swords. Was this man the legendary Wuxia sword immortal? Right now, Chen Zhao could control 7,000 stone swords even without using his clones. He could even control more stone swords. Tamamonome's real body narrowed its eyes. "I can't believe humans nowadays have such powers." "I'll take your words as a compliment." Chen Zhao smiled at Tamamonome. "You're too happy too early. Go." Tens of thousands of Tamamonome's clones pounced at Chen Zhao, or cast spells in the air. Chen Zhao ignored the spells. Standing where he was, he pushed his arms forward. The stone swords turned into a storm of blades, sweeping toward Tamamonome's army. Tamamonome was strong, but she couldn't be stronger than Old Turtle. Her clones weren't clones either. Each one only had 1% of her original strength. They touched the stone swords, or even the slightest bit of sword aura, and instantly turned into smoke. Everyone's faces were filled with horror. Bai Ryuko had thought that Chen Zhao was Zhang Tianyi's junior. So what if he was talented? But now, she realized that Chen Zhao wasn't just talented. Chen Zhao wasn't just talented. His peers had nowhere to go. Even her teacher, Zhang Tianyi, probably couldn't compare to Chen Zhao. Could it be that the supernatural world of Wuxia was already this powerful? An unknown young man actually had such strength. Jiutian Divine Emperor. Chapter 1727. Chio Kaori, and the others were even more shocked. Little Devil turned his head and looked at Chio Kaori. "Kaori, how big is your grudge against him?" The other 3 also looked at Chio Kaori. Everyone was feeling bitter. They also wanted to know how big the grudge was between Chen Zhao and Chio Kaori. In other words, let's not take revenge. How can we take revenge? Chio Kaori was also desperate. According to her script, Chen Zhao was supposed to be an arrogant spiritualist. He bullied his sister with his strength. Then, as a genius spiritualist, she would find out and teach Chen Zhao a lesson. She would let him know that his sister wasn't easy to bully. But now, she suddenly realized. This bastard who liked to bully ordinary people and minors was actually the big boss. To be honest, if Chen Zhao and Tamamo continued fighting like this, they would most likely die of boredom. Chen Zhao couldn't kill Tamamo's clones, but they couldn't outlast Chen Zhao's 7,000 flying swords either. Chen Zhao stopped and put away the 7,000 stone swords. Tamamo didn't summon more clones either. Tamamo narrowed her eyes at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao also stared at Tamamo. Looks like normal methods can't kill you. Tamamo finally confirmed that Chen Zhao was indeed qualified to make her reveal her true form. Instantly, 100 times more demonic aura exploded from Tamamo's body. Tamamo revealed her nine-tailed true form again. Her true form was like a small mountain. Even though she had no aura, she could still bring immense pressure. Chen Zhao turned around and looked at Yoko and the others. Are you sure you're not going to run? Yoko Hikari finally confirmed that this was their last chance. She hadn't run before because she didn't think they had a chance. Now she understood that if they got involved in Chen Zhao and Tamamo's fight, then they would really have no hope. Let's go. Nagasaka Reiko supported Yoko. Chiyo Kaori and the other four were trapped on an isolated rock. They wanted to run, but they couldn't. Chen Zhao glanced at the five. Dark lava shot out instantly, wrapping around Chiyo Tsutomu and the others. Then he tossed them into the crack. At first, the five thought that Chen Zhao was going to deal with them. It wasn't until he landed that he understood Chen Zhao's intentions. The five people looked at each other, and Chiyo Kaori said in a low voice, "Let's go." After a few steps, Chiyo Kaori looked back at Chen Zhao. "Don't die." Chen Zhao also floated up and looked at Tamamo no Mai, who had revealed her true form. Avatar 10,000 techniques returned to 1, Dark Assimilation, Mighty Miracle God, Eye of Power. Chen Zhao had turned into a giant god. Is this your trump card? Tamamo no Mai looked at Chen Zhao. She didn't notice anything amiss. After all, Chen Zhao didn't change much apart from his body shape. His aura didn't grow any stronger. For existences of their level, the transformation of their bodies was nothing. The nine-tailed body suddenly spread open. At the same time, the dark clouds in the sky turned into a huge fox mouth and bit down at Chen Zhao. At this moment, Yoko and the others, who were already 2 kilometers away, felt a chill run down their spines when they saw the terrifying attack behind them. How terrifying! Could that person really be a match for that kind of peerless great demon? Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind behind him. Immediately, the fox mouth formed by the dark clouds was shaken and scattered. Chen Zhao threw a punch and tore a hole in the dark clouds in the sky, but he immediately changed directions and charged at the nine-tailed body at full speed. The yin and yang powers in his body circulated rapidly, bringing even more surging immortal power. 100 meters away from the nine-tailed body, Chen Zhao threw a punch. The punch wasn't green like before. Instead, it was as dazzling as a star, and the punch was as vast as the ocean. Danger! The nine-tailed body almost instinctively avoided the punch. The shadow of the fist swept past like breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Everything that stood in its way disappeared in an instant. After charging more than 10 kilometers, the punch finally landed at the foot of Mount Fuji. The foot of Mount Fuji collapsed, leaving behind an eternal scar. The nine-tailed body looked back and couldn't help but gasp. Now, she was finally sure that the human before her was at the same level as her. No, in terms of combat ability, Chen Zhao was definitely above her. This time was different from last time. Last time, there were many people surrounding her, but none of them could truly match her. In the end, they just barely managed to seal her. But this time, the human before her could really kill her. Chen Zhao's attack missed. He approached the nine-tailed body and followed up with another punch. The nine-tailed body was hit solidly this time. The nine-tailed body's huge body was sent flying. Chen Zhao pressed forward again and threw a punch from above. Boom! The ground was shaking in the fierce battle between the human and the demon. Smoke had already filled the entire forest. Apart from Hakui, Yoko and the others, no one knew what was happening in the dust. They could only feel the shockwaves spreading out wave after wave. Some people couldn't dodge in time and were affected by the shockwaves. In the end, there was nothing left of them. Hakui Yoko and the others had already escaped 20 kilometers away. Right now, they were standing on a road that had long been sealed, looking down at the forest of Aoki Plains below. In the center of the forest, the battle was still going on. Every impact was shocking to the eyes. It wasn't like a battle humans should have at all. It was completely different from the battle they'd imagined. It was the ultimate manifestation of destruction. Mount Fuji was still showing the ultimate power of nature. The ground continued to shake, and volcanic ash continued to fall from the sky. He didn't know whether it was caused by the battle in the center of Aoki Plain or the eruption of Mount Fuji. The government couldn't intervene at all, unless they launch a nuclear bomb. But the center of the battlefield was at the foot of Mount Fuji. If the nuclear bomb hit Mount Fuji and caused Mount Fuji to go out of control, the situation would be even more troublesome. The only thing they could do now was to seal off the surrounding hundreds of kilometers and control public opinion. Fortunately, the sky was too dark because of the dark clouds. Therefore, it was almost impossible to know the exact situation outside of the Greenwood Plains. They also thought that the battle at the foot of Mount Fuji was between Zhang Tianyi and Demonic Fox. This made them even more reluctant to launch the nuclear bomb. Who was Zhang Tianyi? To put it bluntly, if they hurt Zhang Tianyi because of the nuclear bomb, then the consequences might not be any worse than the demon fox wreaking havoc. Therefore, they could only wait for the results. He was waiting for the battle between Zhang Tianyi and Tamamo no Mae to end. At the moment, the spiritualists who had escaped from the forest alive were only a tenth or two of the original number. One could imagine how tragic the battle was. At the same time, it also showed how terrifying Tamamo no Mae was. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1728. I'm starting to admire those who were able to seal you 1,000 years ago. They're really amazing. Chen Zhao sighed as he looked at the nine-tailed true form. Are you going to admit defeat now? The nine-tailed true body was panting. Chen Zhao's body was too tough. When Chen Zhao was in his normal state, she could even hurt him in her human form. However, after Chen Zhao used the mighty miracle god, Chen Zhao's body was almost indestructible. To be honest, Chen Zhao had a headache too, even if he could fight better than Tamamo no Mae. But he didn't have the power to absolutely surpass her. Therefore, it was impossible for him to kill her. There was another way, and that was to seal her. But what Chen Zhao lacked the most was seals. At this moment, a whistling sound came from the sky. Both Chen Zhao and Ninetailed looked up. They were 3 F-22 fighter jets, probably from the U.S. military. Tamamo no Mae stretched out her claws and clawed at him from a distance of more than 10 kilometers. The dark cloud turned into a giant claw and grabbed the 3 American fighter jets. Boom, boom, boom. Tamamo no Mae looked at him. Do you still want to fight? Let's fight for a while longer, Chen Zhao said honestly. If there's really no other way, we'll go home and find our own mothers. Chen Zhao could only give it a try to live up to the Japanese government's pay. Chen Zhao couldn't really risk his life. Actually, in this battle, Chen Zhao and Tamamo had more or less figured out each other's strength. In terms of destructive power and area of effect attacks, Tamamo no Mae was truly amazing. It was impossible for her to sink Japan. But given enough time, she might really be able to flatten the entire Japan. Of course, if that really happened, a nuclear strike would probably come down. But in terms of single target damage, Tamamo no Mae was much weaker than Chen Zhao. All of Tamamo no Mae's attacks were useless against Chen Zhao's body. That was why Tamamo no Mae was having a headache. He took out the black trident. Tamamo no Mae's hair stood on end. I'm a little tired. Let's fight another day. Tamamo no Mae's figure suddenly turned into a ray of light. His speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. Even Chen Zhao couldn't catch up. Chen Zhao was dumbfounded. Why did he suddenly run? Wait, she's afraid of my weapon? The black trident had been modified by Old Turtle. Other than feeling heavy, Chen Zhao didn't feel anything else. However, he was able to scare Tamamo no Mae away. Could this thing really kill her? Chen Zhao silently put away the black trident. He took out his phone. Hello, Mr. Zhang, it's over. What do you think? He won. Or did you lose? Tamomonome ran away. Ran away. I can't kill her. I used everything I had but couldn't do anything to her. She's almost immortal now. He didn't explain the actual situation. After all, it was better to be cautious. Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi weren't that close. Alright, it's not our country's business anyway. After this, I'm even with the Japanese government. Zhang Tianyi didn't care about that. If he could kill them all, that would naturally be the best. Since he couldn't kill it, there was nothing he could do. The next day, the entire world was flooded by a piece of news. Japan's Mount Fuji, which had been asleep for 300 years, erupted. Tokyo was almost submerged in volcanic ash. This disaster also caused a lot of casualties. Of course, under the Japanese government's deliberate push, other news did not have much of an impact. That night, Tamomonome's appearance wasn't completely unknown. But in the end, under the joint efforts of the government and the supernatural world, things seemed to have calmed down a little. This time, the Japanese spirit world had suffered heavy losses. The 9 great shrines suffered the most casualties, and the spiritualists among the people also suffered great losses. However, this was an area where paranormal activity was active. It wasn't that there were a lot of spiritualists left, but that no matter how great the losses were, they could recover their vitality in a short period of time. This was the advantage of being in a supernatural region. The foundation was there, unless everyone was dead. Otherwise, he would be able to recover in a few years, or even a decade. If they were in a supernatural desert like North America, if half of them died, half of the spiritualists would be gone. He might not be able to recover even after a few decades. However, because of the eruption of Mount Fuji, the entire city of Tokyo is now closed. Because of the volcanic ash falling with the rain, as long as they went out, their faces would be covered in dirt. They even had to use a purifier indoors. The most unfortunate thing was that all the airports were grounded. He couldn't leave even if he wanted to. Furthermore, it would be sealed for at least a week. The eruption of Mount Fuji didn't just affect Tokyo. Almost half of Dongying was affected. More than 20 airports were grounded. If Chen Zhao wanted to leave Japan, he had to go to another city. Speaking of which, Tokyo was really a bit chaotic right now. Because all the shops were closed, some lawbreakers began to run rampant. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't plan to return to Los Angeles for now. There was one thing he hadn't done yet. 3 days later, Zhang Tianyi was going to return the Yasukani no Magatama to the Japanese royal family. Zhang Tianyi had already forged in Yasukani no Magatama. Chen Zhao had seen it before, so he could definitely pass it off as the real one. President, Tokyo Grand Witch Yoko from the Grand Shrine is here to visit, West said, running to Chen Zhao. Invite her in, Chen Zhao said. Yoko came with Nagasaka Reiko. Both of them were wearing traditional witch attire. Their attitudes were even more humble and respectful. Mr. Chen, hello. Yoko looked old. It seemed like she'd been under a lot of pressure in the past 2 days. But it was understandable. Her son Seiwa had died. Tokyo Grand Shrine had suffered heavy losses. Nagasaka Reiko wore a white flower on her head, representing her family's funeral. This was similar to the Chinese tradition. Nagasaka Reiko's attitude was also more humble. She even seemed a bit fearful. Hello, Ms. Yoko. How may I help you? I heard from my teacher that Mr. Chen is the president of the Supernatural Organization of North America. Reiko is going to study in Los Angeles this year, so I'd like to ask Mr. Chen to take care of her. Of course, I also hope that you can take her in so she can contribute to the organization. Chen Zhao looked at West. West said, Ms. Yoko, there are already a lot of people in the organization. We don't plan on taking in more people in the short term. Of course, it's our duty to take care of Ms. Yoko. After all, Los Angeles is under our jurisdiction. West's words were very professional. He seemed to be amiable, but in reality, he was saying that they didn't want her. Los Angeles was their territory. If she behaved, everyone would be fine. If she caused trouble, they wouldn't give face to anyone. God King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1729. How smart was Hikari Yoko? Back then, she had gone to China by herself. That was still a time of war. China and Japan were like fire and water. Hikari Yoko had relied on her own persistence to make Zhang Tianyi accept her as a student. Now she saw Chen Zhao again. Of course, she couldn't be his student again, but her granddaughter could. The Tokyo Grand Shrine had suffered heavy losses. It would take at least 20 years to recover, and her granddaughter, Nagasaka Reiko, was bound to take over the Tokyo Grand Shrine. If she could have a backer like Chen Zhao, then her position would be very stable. Even though Nagasaka Reiko had a pure bloodline after she died, then the other branches might come to take over. Whether it was the royal family or a shrine like theirs, it was a problem that couldn't be ignored. Just like how she had taken over the position of witch back then. As a woman with a different surname, she had married into the Nagasaka family. She had received difficulties from the other branches of the Nagasaka family. If Zhang Tianyi hadn't been there to support her, at the time, she had doubted if she could have persevered. And in the future, Nagasaka Reiko would definitely encounter the same problem as her. Even her bloodline couldn't defeat the ambitions of the other branches. So, she had to prepare for Nagasaka Reiko. Back then, Zhang Tianyi had supported her. But after she died and Nagasaka Reiko took over as Magus, Zhang Tianyi had no reason to appear. So, finding a strong backer for Nagasaka Reiko had become a top priority. Without a doubt, Chen Zhao was the best candidate. Mr. Chen, you might not believe it, but Reiko is Dongya Tianqi's niece. Huh, they're that close. Chen Zhao hadn't expected this. If that was the case, he could consider accepting Nagasaka Reiko. The association had always been generous to their own people. Dongya Tianqi had joined the association later. But no matter what, he was still one of them. Yes, Dongya Tianqi is my nephew, so according to kinship, he's also Reiko's uncle. There was a huge difference between a nephew and a nephew. The nephew should be the child of Bairi Yoko's cousin, which was already a different surname. Moreover, Nagasaka Reiko's surname wasn't Hikari, so the blood difference was even greater. Their bloodline was 6 or 7 generations apart. Were they considered relatives? It wouldn't be a problem if the two families were close. But if the two families didn't have any contact with each other, what kind of relatives were they? Of course, Chen Zhao still had to ask for Dongya Tianqi's opinion. West, call Higashino Tianqi over. After all, Higashino Tianqi is Ms. Yoko's nephew. Since Ms. Yoko is here, how can he not pay a visit to his elders? Yes, guild leader. West was actually going over to ask for Dongya Tianqi's opinion. If Dongya Tianqi was willing to be the guide, it would not be a problem for Nagasaka Reiko to join the association. After all, Dongya Tianqi had made contributions to the association. Together, Dongya Tianqi and Jinkira were equivalent to a master blacksmith. It had a very important function in the association. A few minutes later, Dongya Tianqi arrived. When Dongya Tianqi saw Hikari Yoko, he immediately greeted her with the etiquette of a junior. The Japanese were more serious about status and seniority. Of course, Dongya Tianqi's salute was also a show of his attitude. Thank you, Auntie Yoko, for taking care of me in the past. I will always remember it. Don't mention the past. Yoko will be studying in Los Angeles soon. Please take care of her then. Yes, I will. Don't worry, Auntie Yoko. Dongya Tianqi was very respectful toward Hikari Yoko. Then Hikari Yoko and Nagasaka Reiko left. Dongya Tianqi, how is your relationship with your auntie? We don't talk much, but Auntie Yoko helped me introduce a bladesmith 30 years ago, so I am very grateful to her. Actually, she and Dongya Tianqi were not close. They had never even talked to each other. But she knew one thing, and that was, if you planted 100 seeds, there would always be one that would sprout. In the past few decades, Dongya Tianqi was not the only person she had helped. Moreover, she had never thought that this seed would sprout one day and return to her. But reality proved that her decision back then was correct. Some favors did not need to be mentioned actively, because the more you didn't mention it, the more the other person would remember it. Hikari Yoko was too good at manipulating people. Actually, there were some things that both Hikari Yoko and Dongya Tianqi understood. After hearing it, Chen Zhao and West also understood. To put it bluntly, Dongya Tianqi owed her a favor. unless Dongye Tianqi was willing to give up his surname, his family, and even his reputation. Otherwise, he would have to return the favor even if he did not want to. Actually, it's not a big deal to let the girl called Yoko join the association. It's not like there's no benefit in persuading her, West said. West said, Japan is a supernatural area. This will make it easier for us to come into contact with the supernatural world in Japan. We can also carry out missions and activities, and develop our connections in Japan. Dongye Tianqi is also Japanese, Chen Zhao said. No, he's an American now, West said. He's already immigrated. Actually, Chen Zhao understood this too. Even if Dongye Tianqi had not changed his nationality, his connections in Japan could not compare to those at the Tokyo Grand Shrine. After all, it was a famous shrine in Japan, and had an important position in the Japanese supernatural world. If Nagasaka Reiko joined the association, it would symbolize the alliance between the supernatural organization and the Tokyo Grand Shrine. Even if it was not the alliance, outsiders would not believe it. In terms of benefits, the advantages indeed outweighed the disadvantages. Dongye Tianqi, when Nagasaka Reiko comes to L.A., you'll be in charge of observing her for a while. If you think she's okay, you'll be her referral to join the supernatural organization. Hi, President. Dongye Tianqi and Yoko Shiranui were old friends, but he also knew who he was loyal to. As long as it did not harm Chen Zhao and the association's interests, he obviously hoped to gain a favor. How's the situation in Tokyo these 2 days? Still chaotic. Not only are there criminals, but monsters are also very active. Any news of Tamamo no Mae? Chen Zhao asked. To be honest, after Tamamo no Mae escaped from the forest of Aoki Plains, it was basically impossible to destroy her. From now on, Tamamo no Mae could fly as high as she wanted. Even if Tamamo no Mae appeared before Chen Zhao now, he could not fight her in the city, unless Chen Zhao did not care about the consequences and destroyed Tokyo. Both he and Tamamo no Mae had the destructive power of nuclear weapons. If they fought, the world would collapse. Chapter 1730. President, the kid you bullied the other day seems to be here. Have I bullied kids recently? West turned his head away, not wanting to continue talking to Chen Zhao. Kaori, why are you here? Feilai and Portia were very happy to see Chiyo Kaori. However, they turned to look at Chiyo Tsukasa. Is she your sister? You two look alike. Yes, she's my sister, Knight. Chiyo Kaori nodded. Chiyo Kaori now knew exactly what had happened. Of course, if it was someone else, she would still maintain her attitude. But now she had to lower her head before Chen Zhao, because she didn't know whether Chen Zhao had let it go or not. If Chen Zhao still hated her sister, even she couldn't protect Chiyo Tsukasa. So, she had to bring Chiyo Tsukasa here to apologize. Is Mr. Chen here? You're looking for Chen? Yes, Knight did something wrong, so I need to bring her here to apologize to Mr. Chen. It's okay, Feilai said, smiling. He won't argue with kids. Chiyo Tsukasa lowered her head. She'd been threatened by Chiyo Kaori for the entire night. As a 16-year-old girl, she'd been terrified. Chiyo Kaori brought her to every room on this floor. Some rooms were open, and she saw a few familiar figures. They were all people she'd seen that day. She felt that the entire hotel had been taken over by gangsters. Miss Chiyo, why are you here? Chen Zhao walked in with a smile and asked, even though he already knew the answer. Mr. Chen, I'm very sorry for the previous offense. I brought Knight here to apologize. Didn't you want to teach me a lesson 2 days ago? Chen, don't make things difficult for Kaori. Feilai couldn't help but say. I didn't make things difficult for her. When did I make things difficult for her? Yeah, Portia said. The boss has always been tolerant. He won't make things difficult for Kaori. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. Feilai and Portia teamed up. He clearly couldn't do anything to Chiyo Kaori and Chiyo Tsukasa. Forget it. If there's nothing else, please go back. I won't pursue the past. Chen Zhao didn't plan on making things difficult for them. Chen Zhao wasn't an emperor. He couldn't kill anyone's family just because they offended him. Smokey, stay and talk to us for a while. That damned volcano has been erupting for the past 2 days, so we can't leave the hotel. Now the entire city of Tokyo was gray, and through the glass windows, one could see the embers falling like falling snow. But it wasn't snow, it was volcanic ash. Inhaling it into the mouth and nose will cause respiratory damage. During these 2 days, every hospital in Tokyo was packed with people. All of them were symptoms caused by inhaling volcanic ash. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't let Fei Lai and the 2 kids go out in such a situation. With this kind of air quality, Chen Zhao really wanted to take his family away from Tokyo. This situation would not be alleviated until the next rainfall. The eruption of Mount Fuji brought immeasurable economic losses to Tokyo, and even the entire Dongying. Chiyo Kaori looked at Chen Zhao, who shrugged and left the room. It was better to give the room to these women. He did not intend to stay here and join in the fun. President, look at the TV. I don't understand Japanese. What's there to see? Tokyo TV's program, West repeated. Chen Zhao glanced at West and turned on the TV. It was a talent show. In the show, the beautiful contestants all showed off their talents, singing and dancing. West, if you're lonely, go find a woman yourself. Henry has been to those places before. You can ask him to take you there. West rolled his eyes. I'm not asking you to watch this. Then which one? Just then contestant 99 walked to the front of the stage. This woman was very beautiful, and her figure was perfect, especially her pair of long legs, which left a deep impression on people. After introducing herself, contestant 99 started to show off her talent. She danced a piece of dance full of ancient charm. Moreover, the dance was full of charm. Chen Zhao shuddered. Contestant 99 was clearly wearing clothes, but he felt a primal desire rising. This woman was too devilish. What's with this woman? She should be the nine-tailed fox Tamamo no Mae, West said. Are you sure? I don't remember her looking like this. President, is it hard to change her appearance for someone like her? That's true. But how can you be sure she's Tamamo no Mae just from her performance? Others might not be able to tell, but I'm sure that she is, West said. Chen Zhao looked at West. He knew that West was good at sharp thinking and slow reaction. Why do you think she's Tamamo no Mae? She can break through my calm thinking, West said. West said, her dance is filled with all kinds of hints. These seemingly simple dance moves make me unable to think calmly. This kind of power is unprecedented. She can drive any man crazy. Hearing West's words, Chen Zhao couldn't help but become serious. But then again, even if she was Tamamo no Mae, he couldn't do anything to her. Perhaps she knew this, which was why she'd appeared. She might even let people know of her existence on purpose. But those who could find out her identity might not dare to expose the truth. Because if the Japanese government found out about her identity, they'd definitely start a war. If Tamamo no Mae caused a ruckus in Tokyo, in that case, the problem would be huge. Tamamo no Mae was like a moving nuclear warhead. The spiritualists in the spiritual world knew, but the government might not. So, she was sure that even if spiritualists knew her identity, they wouldn't dare to reveal the truth to the government. Chen Zhao thought about it carefully and realized that it was true. Even Chen Zhao didn't dare to reveal her identity. Whatever, Chen Zhao said unconcerned. What does she want to do? It has nothing to do with us. It wasn't worth it to continue chasing Tamamo no Mae. Plus, he'd experienced the battle in Aoki Plains. Chen Zhao felt that he'd already paid back everything he should. It was impossible for him to fight Tamamo no Mae to the death again. The talent show was recorded and ended with Tamamo no Mae's victory. This was within Chen Zhao's expectations. After all, those mediocre women were facing a peerless great demon. And the charming Tamamo no Mae again. All the women in the world combined might not be able to compare to her. God Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1731. Purely from an aesthetic point of view, the show was indeed good. Record it and send it to me. I'll study it. Actually, Chen Zhao didn't think that Tamamo could cause any trouble. Times were different now. If Tamamo wanted to continue doing whatever she wanted, in the end, it would be difficult for them to escape the fate of being destroyed or sealed. In the first round, Chen Zhao and Tamamo no Mae couldn't do anything to each other. But it didn't mean that Tamamo was immortal. Chen Zhao didn't even dare to say that he was immortal. Humans hadn't found a way to kill her yet, but it didn't mean that they couldn't. Plus, humans had ultimate weapons. Chen Zhao estimated that he could withstand the explosion of a nuclear weapon with the equivalent of 10,000 tons of TNT now. But if humans were determined to destroy something, 100,000 tons, 1,000,000 tons, or even 10 million tons were possible. After all, decades ago, the former Russia had created a nuclear weapon with a yield of 100 million tons, Big Ivan. The current level of technology was many times higher than it was a few decades ago. This was no longer a world of monsters. It was ruled by humans. Even if Tamamo was hiding in a crowded city, humans would kill without caring about the casualties. That day in the forest of Greenwood Plains, Tamamo realized that something was wrong and immediately flew away. This meant that she wasn't a mindless monster. She was smarter than most monsters, and even more intelligent than most humans. So, Chen Zhao didn't think that she would cause a huge commotion. A heavy downpour completely washed the entire Tokyo. Hundreds of thousands of tons of volcanic ash were washed into the sewers. The entire city looked brand new. The citizens and tourists who had been suppressed for almost a week finally released their strong desire to shop. All the malls, supermarkets, restaurants, and even bars were filled with people. People enjoyed shopping like crazy, as if they were celebrating a festival. Zhang Tianyi strolled in the Japanese palace, the East Imperial Garden. This was the modern royal residence. A royal servant followed beside Zhang Tianyi. The outer area of the Imperial Garden was for tourists. However, the inner area wasn't open to the public. Just then, a man in hunting clothes walked out. The man's makeup was slightly feminine. He held a folding fan in his hand. He was a member of the royal family Minamiya. In Japan, the Minamiya and the Abe family were known as the two heroes of Japan. They had both risen during the Heian era and had been worshipped by the royal family for generations. Greetings, celestial teacher Zhang. Minamiya had a high status, but he couldn't be arrogant before Zhang Tianyi. Of course, even though Zhang Tianyi had a high status, the current emperor of Japan wouldn't see him. Minamiya was the best person to meet and receive him. Hello, Mr. Minamiya. Zhang Tianyi had a smile on his face. This time, I'm here mainly to return your royal family's national treasure. Yuan Minamiya was stunned and looked at Zhang Tianyi in astonishment. Celestial teacher, what? The Yasukov Magatov of Japan of Z. How can we do that? We promised it to the heavenly master. Celestial to of the emperor of to you. He. Of hand he. Genamiya was obviously happy that the Yasukov Magatov of the emperor had returned to the emperor. Of course, he still had to make excuses on the surface. Genamiya opened the brocade box. Seeing the Yasukov Magatov inside, he was even more assured. If Zhang Tianyi didn't return the Yasukov Magatov, he might have to wait for a few more years. After Zhang Tianyi reached the end of his life, he could ask for it back through political means. Just then, a wave of demonic aura spread over. Zhang Tianyi and Genamiya's expressions changed drastically. Zhang Tianyi looked at Genamiya. Where did the demonic aura come from? Genamiya's face was also filled with astonishment. This was the imperial palace, where the royal family lived. It was impossible for a monster to come in. Just then, a figure flashed past at an extremely fast speed. Oh no! Zhang Tianyi slapped out. The figure was sent flying. A strange look flashed across Zhang Tianyi's eyes. It wasn't Chen Zhao. It was a fox demon, a white fox. Then, 9 more foxes jumped out. They surrounded Zhang Tianyi and Genamiya. A woman flew through the air. Of course, it was Tamamo no Mei. Tamamo no Mei was still barefoot, and her clothes were extravagant. One of the foxes flew past. Before Genamiya could react, Tamamo no Mei snatched the brocade box. Is this the new palace? Has the imperial family already weakened to such a degree? Tamamo no Mei looked around the imperial palace as she held a brocade box in her hand. Demon, leave the Yasukov Magatov here. Zhang Tianyi shouted. Little old man, you're too weak. Tamamo no Mei waved her hand, and a wave of demonic aura surged over. Zhang Tianyi pulled Genamiya over and shielded him behind him. Tamamo no Mae waved her hand, and the 9 foxes circled around her. Then, he looked into the depths of the imperial palace. Found it. Tamamo no Mae flew out. Oh no, heavenly teacher, stop her. Genomiya paled in fright. What is that place? That's where the Yata no Kagami and Kusanagi sword are kept. Zhang Tianyi was also shocked. He immediately charged out. Just then, a figure flew in front of Zhang Tianyi and blocked him. A few strands of Zhang Tianyi's hair were cut off. Zhang Tianyi immediately retreated. Looking closely, he saw that Chen Zhao had come. Both of them were making eye contact. Demon, get lost. Otherwise I'll teach you a lesson, Zhang Tianyi shouted. Don't even think of stopping my master's great plan. Take this. Zhang Tianyi immediately stood together with the white-faced ghost that Chen Zhao had turned into. Chen Zhao, what's going on? Tamamo no Mae has nothing to do with me, Chen Zhao said in a low voice. I didn't expect her to show up either, but this is good. I can blame it on her. But that peerless demon fox wants to snatch the Yata no mirror and the Kusanagi sword. If these 2 divine weapons were to fall into her hands, the consequences would be unimaginable. Who cares? Chen Zhao didn't care. He just needed to prove Tamamo no Mae's crime. Whether Tamamo no Mae snatched the Yata no Kagami and the Kusanagi sword had nothing to do with him. At this time, Tamamo no Mae rushed into the treasury hall. The defensive formation in the treasury hall collapsed upon contact. In just a few seconds, Tamamo no Mae broke through the roof with the Yata mirror and Kusanagi sword. Children, let's go. Chen Zhao immediately separated from Zhang Tianyi and chased after Tamamo no Mae. When Tamamo no Mae saw Chen Zhao, she was stunned at first, but then she smiled charmingly. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1732. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao and Tamamo no Mae had disappeared from Tokyo. Chen Zhao, we meet again. How do you know my name? Your hotel is registered, Tamamo no Mae said. You've changed your way of speaking. It's so stupid to talk like that again, Tamamo no Mae said. How did you appear there? Wait, let me guess. Tamamo no Mae suddenly stopped Chen Zhao. She thought for a moment. You used that old man as the intermediary and took the Yasakani no Magatama as payment. The condition was to destroy me, and you were afraid that the royal family would go back on their word and find you. So you put on a show with that old man. Tamamo no Mae paused and thought for a moment. I just happened to appear. So you and him plan to blame me? Chen Zhao smiled at Tamamo no Mae. How did this fox's brain work? Tamamo no Mae took out a brocade box and took out the fake Yasakani no Magatama. She looked left and right and then grabbed it. Without much effort, she crushed it. So it's fake. Tamamo no Mae waved her hand and tossed the powder away. Since I took the blame for you, shouldn't you give me some benefits? For example, the Yasakani no Magatama. No. Chen Zhao shrugged. I did the same thing you did to the real thing. Tamamo no Mae looked at him. You solved the secret of the Yasakani no Magatama? Oh, apparently, Amaterasu from Japan is a god. Your method is very similar to that. It seems that you really solved the secret of the Yasakani no Magatama. How about sharing it with me? After all, I took the blame for you. No way. Chen Zhao rejected Tamamo no Mae's request without hesitation. Tamamo no Mae was already so difficult to deal with now. If she knew the secret of the Yasakani no Magatama, she would definitely be even more difficult to deal with. Then I'll tell the Japanese government about your plan. Tamamo no Mae suddenly stopped. Oh right, no one will believe me. Give me either the Yasakani no Magatama or the Kusanagi no Mae, and I'll share the secret of the Yasakani no Magatama with you. Hee, don't even think about it. Tamamo no Mae refused decisively. She had snatched the Yata no Kagami and Kusanagi sword to guard against Chen Zhao. After all, Chen Zhao's black trident was too much of a threat to her. If Chen Zhao took out his black trident the next time they fought, he might really be killed. This was why Tamamo no Mae wanted to unravel the secret of the 3 divine artifacts. And Chen Zhao already knew the secret of the Yasakani no Magatama. If he obtained another divine artifact and was able to decipher it, then he would be in even more danger. You want to use Kusanagi sword and Yata no Kagami to deal with me? That's right. Tamamo no Mae didn't plan on hiding it. After all, it was too obvious. In this world, there was no one who could threaten her. Chen Zhao was the only one left. If he didn't have any means to protect himself, she really felt insecure. Tamamonome took out the Kusanagi no Tsurugi, even though she did not decipher the Kusanagi no Tsurugi. However, she could still feel that this was an invincible divine sword. It might not even be weaker than Chen Zhao's black trident. Tamamonome's jade-like hand gently stroked the ancient blade. Do you want to try what it feels like to be cut by it? Chen Zhao's teeth hurt. He shouldn't have let her take the Kusanagi sword so easily. He felt a long-lost threat from the Kusanagi sword. If it really cut his body, he might really be injured. Let's not fight. We don't have to kill each other, right? Chen Zhao took out the black trident. Although he said he wouldn't fight, he still felt that he needed the black trident to feel safe. Okay, put it away first. You're making me feel very insecure with this thing. You're the one who feels insecure, Chen Zhao said. Put away the Kusanagi sword first. You're a fox demon. You make me shiver with the Kusanagi sword. Why are you so loud? I know people like you only think about subduing demons, right? Put down your weapon, or I won't go easy on you. You're the one who should put down your weapon. Hurry up and put down your weapon. Chen Zhao raised his voice too. No one was willing to put down their weapons, but no one planned on fighting. They were just shooting their mouths at each other. They were both wary of each other. In the end, they retreated cautiously. Chen Zhao didn't plan on taking the Kusanagi sword and the Yada no Kagami. It was mainly because they were too troublesome. After all, Tamamonome had been snatched from the Japanese royal family's nest. It was 100 times riskier than the Yasakani no Magatama. At least the Yasakani no Magatama had been traded in a proper way. But the Kusanagi sword and the Yada no Kagami no Magatama had been snatched. They felt hot in his hands. Chen Zhao didn't plan on sharing the pressure with Tamamonome. West had booked a plane and chartered it. They would fly to Los Angeles at noon tomorrow. The matter in Japan had also come to an end. But this time, the original Scarlet mission could be considered a complete failure. No one from the association had a chance to do anything. Fortunately, Chen Zhao and West hadn't been careless. If one day the people from the association were to get involved, not to mention how useful they would be, at least they wouldn't be able to avoid losses. The news of the attack on the royal family's residence hadn't been leaked. Even the spiritual world didn't know. The impact of this matter was too great. After all, the Yada no Kagami, Kusanagi no Magatama, and Yasakani no Magatama were the national treasures of Japan. But now, all three had fallen into Tamamonome's hands. If this matter were to spread out, everyone would definitely be in a state of panic. It would be a huge blow to both the public and the spiritual world. So, the royal family could only use the three fakes for now. Anyway, the three divine artifacts didn't have much use. They were more symbolic than practical. So, as long as they were in the royal family's hands, they were real. If they fell into someone else's hands, even the real ones would become fakes. Finally, Chen Zhao boarded the flight home. He lowered his head and looked at Tokyo, which was getting further and further away. Every Chinese had complicated feelings about Japan, especially those at Chen Zhao's age. This was especially true for people his age, because he had grown up watching anti-Japanese dramas and Japanese comics. But to Chen Zhao, Japan had nothing to do with him. Chen Zhao didn't plan on sinking Japan either. He didn't want to come back to Japan either. Tamamonome was really a dangerous woman. Whether it was her power, her intelligence, or the divine weapon in her hand, Chen Zhao felt a sense of danger. "President, we plan to go to Norway in a week," West said, walking to Chen Zhao's side. "Huh? So urgent? Do you need me to go with you?" Chen Zhao asked. "Nine Heavens God King, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.